Very good morning. It's 10:30 and we are about to start. So may I request everyone to seat, please? Thank you very much. So very good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to welcome you. Interaction about title says very clearly how do we renew and renovate the infrastructure overall to take the institute to the next slide. At the outset, I must thank all of you who have taken the time out to come and spend time with us to discuss about it, and also a large number of people who are already online attending this meeting. Thank you very much. I appreciate your concern, your commitment to this great institute. So, institute has grown over the year, created a reputation, all of that we know. And I don't want to brag about that. But what is important for all of us to understand that as institute grows, we need to also grow in terms of size and in terms of number of students, the kind of teaching we do, kind of courses we teach, and so on and so forth. If you want to do this, we need infrastructure. And that's the reason why this meeting to ensure that we all collectively decide something which is a future path for our institute. So, of course, there is next 15 minutes or so, I will spend time in explaining you the history mostly and basically discuss with you about some of the findings which we have found over a period of time. Uh, so basically, you all know that this building construction was mandated to NID at that time to develop the institute, and then in the process, NID worked with Professor Lukan, and Mr. B.V. Doshi was appointed as a lead architecture. And there were also in-house team created at that time of architects to start the construction. And then between 1962 and 1965, many design iterations took place. Broad plan was prepared and campus work began somewhere in 1964. Please note 19 September 64 we started the work. The construction work of some of the dormitories and staff were completed between 65 and 69. And between 69 and 74, the Vikram Sarabhai library, faculty block, classroom, etc. were completed. Uh, Somewhere in 1974, unfortunately, we lost Professor Louis Khan, and Mr. Anand Raje became the lead architect, and he led the design since 74 onwards. And between 74 and 1988, we have completed the KLMDC center, kitchen and dining area, and so forth. So I think a lot of effort have gone behind in creating this iconic building which we all see, and the legacy left behind of these people. We inherited a great infrastructure, and the institute became operational. I heard met some people who were first or second batch here, and you all know that we were in a tea shed where we were actually being taught at that moment. So the sketch which was prepared in 1952, if some of you are going to visit today the archival center, you will find some actual picture of this sketch there. So that sketch, that was the initial concept which was prepared. It was driven by the convent building style, and more open areas and things can be created. And this was basically achieved through a kind of a meeting and interaction area, much more larger passages, collectively a lot of open areas. And finally, the Lucan Plaza came in, which is all we are very, very proud of it, and a lot of our convocations, most of you have attended the convocation in the Lucan Plaza. So I think over a period, this design itself has become symbolic for IIM. The problem started because the bricks which were used. The first version which Mr. Lucan prepared was requiring to build an RCC building. But the local Ahmedabad thinking and the Indian thinking was bricks are being used more and not that. And as a result, he agreed to make a brick building, and then it was changed to a brick masonry building. This, of course, is not very well documented, but I did interact with some people who were involved actually in these days. The when this brick structure was being created, it required a reinforcement. So Louis Kahn suggested that while you make a brick wall, you put four bricks in such a way that there is a hole in between. You put the rod into that and pour concrete. And at every period, something like 3 or 4 feet, you run a vertical small coping or or a kind of a thing to make sure that structure becomes straight. At that time, cement and steel was very difficult to get in India. And in doing so, it was expected that the cost will go up something more. And in the wisdom of everybody who was there at that time, they decided we will go ahead and with that. And some people advised at that time that only putting a rod will serve the purpose. Now the problem is that the bricks in Ahmedabad has made out of sand and clay, and they are very porous in nature. So over a period, water has seepage through the bricks into that, and the steel rods got eroded. Some of them you can see protruded out, and that created a huge damage to the whole building, including the top slabs also had the similar problems. So I think many things we can keep on talking, but I think key message I want to say is that we inherited a very iconic building, but unfortunately, because of these weather condition in Ahmedabad and the brick condition, the building started deteriorating in first 10 years itself. And in fact, 1982, the building committee discussed about the erosion of. So since 1982, we have been talking about this problem. And I don't want to blame anybody here. If somebody has not able to decide that time, we are all responsible. Because if we were senior concerned citizen of this institute, we should all have helped them to take a right decision. Or even they take the right decision, didn't happen. And then two Lucan students came in 87 and told they were sent by Professor Lucan to understand what's happening. And they also say exposed machinery, it is going to be difficult in few years to repair. In 1991, there were efforts made to redress the issue of that. In 1996, Mr. Anand Raje and Engineer Shah made a report, a document deteriorating the main building. And then we commission a report again in 2 parts and so on and so forth. And every now and then some renovation places took place. So we conducted several studies for the building structure. SAPT in 1998 made a report. Subsequently, conservative architects from UK were hired in 2014. They advised us, their report came in. Non-destructive tests were conducted in 2020. They were done as per the advice of the structural consultant that time. An international team was invited in 21-22 to have a look at it and suggest things. And then in 21, we also requested IIT Roorkee to help us to come out with a report, and I'm happy that they are here to actually share their findings with us. Basically, a report pointed out presence of moisture inside the brick, which has led to corrosion of bars. Reinforcement of the steel pushed itself out for the climatic condition, and it has further eroded actually the brickwork. And significant repair and maintenance required to make the building structurally safe. And these studies has ultimately said, and one other thing which I found in all those reports is, everybody says this can be repaired. I think anything can be repaired. I agree. Question is, nobody saying any guarantee that whether it's good for 1 year It will be good for 2 years. It will be good for 3 years. He says, no, no. After that, you have to keep on maintaining. Now, I personally, not an engineer, don't understand, but some of you might be engineer, might be able to understand that you can keep on repairing and keep on maintaining that forever, which is not possible because someday the building life will get over according to all of those reports. Then, sorry, basically, what came out of the report is basically there was a substandard bricks which were used, the exposed machinery and no cover over that has allowed the water to seep in. The reinforcement of masonry was on the bar. As a result, the bars were corroded, uh, and as a result, if I have to put everything together, the building deteriorated continuously, and most of the what we see is structural in nature. But if you see what happened, library east and west side, 8 feet wall cracked and fall. Service tower main arches at 90 feet height cracked and fell. Dormitory building staircase roof slab fell and walls were cracked. Dormitory building shaft well cracked and fell. Extended parapet wall of faculty housing cracked and fell, and the cracks were observed in various other areas. So the way the concern started happening about safety of people occupying this building. So apart from restoration effort shown in the timeline, what we see here, we also carried out maintenance work of the building at various times. For the past 2 decades, if you see, instead of taking regular repairs, maintenance, restoration effort have been carried out, and this chart tells you about it, that repair works were done in 2001, reconstruction was done between 9 and 10, 50th anniversary repair work was again done in 2011. We appointed a UK consultant and SK consultant were appointed for restoration. SK consultant worked between 2014 and 19, 5 years to restore Vikram Sarabhai Library and one dome. And restoration work of the faculty block also was taken up in 2020-21. And then we found so many issues and problems while doing this. And then we commissioned IIT Roorkee to help us understand this more. Now, I just want to show you some pictures for you to understand. If you see here in this chart, this was the situation before restoration work done for Vikram Sarabhai building. So there were like problems, cracks and whatnot, and then we decided that we'll do it. After restoration, within 1 year, we started getting cracks. So if you see here, some mark here, all of these are pipes put inside, and through that we are injecting to keep the building alive. And you see this thing, when this thing started happening, the restoration architects put support. Now this building is restoration done, and after restoration, after some time it happened, even so happened with the D15 building as well. So we found that in spite of restoration, a lot of things happen. And if you see when restoration was done in the VSL building, actually 2 slabs were actually broken. Half of the walls were broken, and new slabs were casted, and also the walls were constructed. So if you say it was rebuilding come restoration which was done, and in spite of that, we still have problems with that building. So because of unsatisfactory work, we basically asked IIT Roorkee and also international team to help us that what we can really do. And summary is basically, as you see here, is that it's difficult to keep architectural building intact and keep building safe. Restoration will be technically impractical, though and ineffective, as we've seen now. We are now in a seismic zone. Ahmedabad is considered as zone 4 now, and as a result, it is important that a severe earthquake can hit Ahmedabad and can create situation which is could be left. So I think ultimately, basically, safety is becoming a major concern for all of us. Now, we need to really see and discuss here today what can we do. So I have no fixed idea. If there is a great idea which is practical and safe for everybody who live here, we are willing to adapt. Of course, we all have to understand that, you know, very interesting will happen, and I must tell you, you must know this. When the faculty block restoration work was started, there was an architect which was appointed earlier, and they had a structural engineer with them. Halfway the building, when they saw that VSL building had some problems, they changed the structural engineer, and a new structural engineer came up. The new structural engineer gave completely thing, and every classroom they told us to put 16 pillars inside the classroom. Now we said, if you put 16 pillars in the classroom, what will be the status of the classroom? What will happen to the people who are studying? So all those issues started coming up. Not only that, the cost which was estimated by them was around 8,700 rupees a square feet. Now all of you know in your wisdom of new building construction how much it costs. So it was of course a solution which was not foolproof, because thereafter again same music starts that you have to continuously maintain, you have to have a good maintenance program. Now, what is that good maintenance program is very difficult to define or even execute. And if for ages we have not been able to do it, whether we can do it now or not is a question. So I think safety consideration, in my opinion, is the most important part as far as we are concerned. And then, of course, there are cautionary reports. The restoration results are not. We need to really think, what can we do? We have an iconic structure, a great contribution of Lucan in this structure, and we all would like to have it with us. At the same time, we need to find a practical solution which actually make building safe, long lasting, and at the same time we are able to maintain some of these uh, things which we have inherited from Professor Lucan. So I don't want to say anything further, but I think we need your support, guidance, wisdom to understand what really we can do and then move forward. Again, I repeat, I do not have a fixed idea. What I have shown you up till now is the factual reality and nothing more. And I would like to hear after that, first of all, of course, very importantly, we would have a presentation by IIT Roorkee team here. I must thank them, they are here with us, all the three professors are here. They would be basically talking to you briefly about their finding. You may ask a question and thereafter we can interact among us. Thank you very much.
Very good morning to all of you. In fact, Sunday morning. So, Mr. Patel has already done half of my job. He has already presented many of the structural things which we were planning to do. Anyway, uh, so as he told that we are here to tell you the structural soundness or structural condition of the buildings under reference. The scope of the work which was assigned to IIT Roorkee is shown over here. That involved structural evaluation of dormitories and classroom complex building, and then KLMDC and its annexi. But let me tell you that because this was awarded to us in, I think, beginning of 22, but before that we were also involved in some way in the other buildings also. First, around 2019, somebody called us from Ahmedabad or Bombay that they want some tests to be done on faculty block also, because at that time the restoration work of faculty block was going on. So we did some tests on faculty block. So we have fair amount of idea about the condition of faculty block also. And then thereafter in 20 or 21, then we were awarded the work for periodical or routine assessment of already restored two buildings, which were the library building and dormitory 50, because the consultant who was employed to design restoration of the buildings, they started with the restoration of dormitory 15 and library. So when it was completed, so they mentioned that it should be visited or inspected every 2 years or 3 years as a part of kind of periodic assessment. So towards that end, we were asked to do investigations on library building and Dom 15 also. So we have, I mean, again, a fair amount of idea about the condition of these two buildings also, what was there before restoration and after restoration, how they have been behaving. And then, of course, for these three categories of buildings, we have done detailed investigations. So, although we will be, and yes, till date, we have completed dormitories in all respects. And right now, we are doing investigations on classroom complex and KLMDC. That is still underway. So, overall, we have got enough proper idea about the structural condition of all the buildings in the old campus of IIM Ahmedabad. So, how did we proceed? What was the methodology adopted? As you can see over here, that in any old structure, when you are asked to do structural assessment, then there are two main components of that study. One is to investigate or to determine the structural soundness of different elements of the building, structural elements, of course, and the building as a whole. Means whether any deterioration has happened, aging, of course, will happen, but has the aging happened, has occurred beyond the acceptable limits or not? So that is the one thing. Means, in other words, you can also say understanding health of the building. So that was the one way of, I mean, one part of doing assessment. And second part is to check the structural safety of the building as a whole under all the load cases. All the load cases mean gravity loads, means dead loads, live loads, and all lateral loads, earthquake load, wind loads, maybe some other kinds of loads, means all load cases. So that is always the second part. So once these two things are done on any existing building, then you can say uh, with all confidence that this building is safe or needs some kind of repair, or means the entire idea about the overall condition of the building can be gauged after doing all these two things. So very quickly, these are typical plans of the DOMs. As you can see, DOM 1 to 15 is something like this. You have washroom area on this side, and 16, 17, 18 is slightly different. It is like this. And then there are their section elevations are different because they were built over a period of time starting from 62 till late 70s. So in DOM it is 4, 5, 7, 8, 10. This is G plus 2. And then in D5 and D8 they have got two basement. I mean, they have got basement portions also. And then in D3, D6, D9, D12 they are also ground plus 2 stories. And then they have got the ground floor which is of double height. So, I mean, you know better than me because most of you have lived here. So, typical elevation of the other dormitories, they are ground plus 3. And same is 16, 17, 18, which were built slightly later. That is also ground plus 3. And this is the plan view of the classroom building, which we are doing right now. The elevation, and this is the plan. Now, in these buildings, what are the different structural elements? Means how the loads travel, what are the load paths. So as we know that gravity loads and for lateral loads, the load paths are required to transfer the load to the ground, to the foundation. So what are the structural elements which participate in passing those loads? And in all these buildings, you have got masonry walls, which are both unreinforced and reinforced. In classroom complex, faculty block, library, and some of the dormitories, these are reinforced masonry walls, vertical elements. And also in the walls, wherever openings are there, you have got opening means these kinds of things I am saying. Uh, Over the openings, either you have flat arches, somewhere you have semicircular arches, somewhere you have oculus openings. All right, so these are the vertical elements, and then to transfer the load over the opening, you have these elements. So they transfer finally the vertical load to the foundation, right? And as I said, they are both unreinforced and reinforced. And then as far as horizontal elements are concerned, like slabs, they are all reinforced concrete. And all these elements are exposed. When I say exposed means on reinforced concrete, we don't have any plaster. All right. And similarly in masonry also, there was no plaster. Fine. I mean, that is one way of, one language of architecture. So these are the, as you can see here also, so these different categories of elements, structural elements, they are just described further. Reinforced cement concrete elements were staircases, slabs, of course staircases also, they were all RCC and few parapet walls. And unreinforced masonry elements were basically in some dormitories where walls and piers were unreinforced, where the reinforcement was not there, and that is why they are still doing better than wherever reinforcement was there. And in in reinforced masonry, which we typically call RB, reinforced brick masonry elements, you have flat arches, oculus openings, walls in classroom complex, faculty blocking. Now, any building, when I say service behavior, how, I mean, because as we all know, all living and non-living things age with time. Everything has got age. So, buildings, structures also age with time. So, if something is aging in usual terms, it's fine. If something is aging prematurely, that is something we don't agree to, we don't accept. How this aging happens? Aging happens for different kinds of materials in a different way. So unreinforced masonry will age at a different pace because aging, of course, will depend on the member's own material and capacity as well as the external environment. All right. So masonry, unreinforced masonry will age differently because its behavior is different. Reinforced masonry will degrade at a faster rate because reinforcement is the culprit. And reinforced cement concrete will also age at a faster rate. All these things age with time, and then after some time we start seeing diseases. So in medical parlance, exactly the same thing. So you can draw analogy. So as our human body, if we do not take care of our body, after some time we'll have some kind of disease, and then those diseases, they manifest themselves in some form like fever or something going wrong, blood pressure, sugar, all those things. The same way here also. So these are the diseases, these are the symptoms of distresses. So you will start seeing some cracks, some kind of corrosion, falling, seepage, all those things happening. It means something is going wrong inside. So we need to understand what is there, what is the cause of the problem. So causes we can divide in three categories. So defects are generally when something has, some error has been done in the design right in the beginning or in construction. That is not the main cause. Of course, as Mr. Patel mentioned that yes, there was some problem in the bricks and also construction technique, because Louis Kahn has proposed the use of reinforcing bars to be protected with concrete. That probably has not happened. So some problems were there. So it has some role to play. But then if defects are there, yes, problems will start happening sooner than later. Then damages generally happen when you have some kind of overloading, earthquake, some kind of overloading. Then deterioration is aging. Aging is bound to happen. Aging will happen. As I said, everything has age. So aging happens, and then the aging, as I said, will depend upon the materials or elements' own capacity as well as external environment. External environments, unfortunately, are changing in our cities. They are becoming more harsh. They are not only harsh to us as human beings, they are harsh to structures also. So we do not have luxury of building exposed masonry, brick masonry especially, and concretes now. We need to protect them. We need to give some kind of protective coating if we want to have elongated service life. So aging will happen. Aging is bound to happen. Now, so in order to understand this first component of our overall investigation, which was to understand the structural soundness or health of the building, the first component involved these two things, which is we started with visual inspection and distress mapping, and then we undertook detailed in situ. When I said in situ means in place testing. We took some samples. We did a lot of investigations in our laboratory in IIT Roorkee, and then also then we carried out structural analysis, which involved all the required relevant load cases to know the structural adequacy of the member of the structure. So very quickly, a summary of visual inspection, the distresses which you will be able to appreciate now in a better way is that, as you can see here, this is the visual distress of reinforced cement concrete elements. Because of the lighting, maybe that you are not able to see the cracks, but yes, here you can see. So some of the pictures which are shown here, the cracks, they varied from 0.5 mm to 5 millimeter. Typically in reinforced concrete design, we do not allow the crack widths to be more than 0.3 millimeter, because if they are more than that, then you have problem with respect to durability, serviceability, and some other problems also. The cracks were all, wherever we observed, they are all mostly more than 0.5 mm. As you can see the summary here, for cracks in the reinforced concrete structural element, which are staircases and the slabs, dormitory wise you can see, so cracks were ranging from 12% to as high as somewhere 62%. So these many elements were cracked. And delamination, when I say delamination, means the cover concrete has become loose, has got separated because of corrosion. So in many of significant number of elements, they have delamination also. And please keep in mind, delamination spalling happens when the problem has reached at advanced stage. Because obviously when something starts manifesting on the surface, it means the underlying problem has progressed to a great extent. So as you can see, almost 50% of the elements had cracks in most of the dormitories. And same was true in other buildings also. I'll show you that also. And then this is RCC, where you can see the spalling. These are other kinds of symptoms. Spalling, and some of the elements were already repaired. Repaired means patch repairs were done already, which obviously is not the proper way of doing. Even in those patch repairs, again the cracks have started. Because if you are doing patch repairs, you are addressing the effect, not the cause. So cause is still going on. Cause is corrosion of reinforcement. It is still going on. So cracked elements. So as you can see the summary here, spalling again, many of the elements, spalling is again the next stage of progress of the disease. After cracking a delamination, when something falls apart, we call it spalling. So spalling has also happened in many of the reinforced concrete elements. And then in many places we saw the instances of past repair also. Now coming to the reinforced masonry elements, which you might have also seen in many of the buildings, there are serious cracks. So as you can see here, in all the openings, in arches, flat arches, there were serious wide cracks. And even some of the places, the reinforcement is visible where reinforcement has corroded, expanded, swelled, had swollen, and then has also led to the spalling. As you can see, cracking in these reinforced elements in the RB element, which is reinforced brick elements. As you can see, the cracks ranging as high as 83% of the elements are cracked. All right, maybe some of the dormitories might be 20%, but as you can see, majority of them are 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%. Means they are at advanced stage of this problem. Now coming to unreinforced masonry. Unreinforced masonry, as I said, culprit was reinforcement. Unreinforced masonry, wherever it was, mostly in some of the walls in dorm buildings, they are still, they are slightly better than the other types of elements, but they also have problems in the form of, as you can see, there are seepage or inflorescence. They finally lead to disintegration of the mortar joints, and obviously the implication will be in the form of loss in the structural capacity of the masonry walls also, because unreinforced masonry is also structural element here. These are all load bearing walls. So as you can see, rising dam from the ground, there are problems. Then at some of the locations, mortar has in fact leached out. It has disintegrated, it's gone out. In fact, we did some studies where through a non-destructive test, we found out the cavities in the mortar. So this is a summary of the distresses in unreinforced elements, as you can see, for different dormitories. Seepage and resulting distresses, this range from 14 to 58, or sorry, 91%, and rising damp also up to 95%. Average is around 40, 50. Mortar leaching means mortar disintegrated completely and just big elements are just loose. So that is the situation I'm talking about here. So there also many of the unreinforced elements had these problems. Now, in classroom complex, as you can see, although we are still underway, we are still right now doing this work on classroom complex, it has got serious issues because here in the classroom complex, all elements are reinforced brick or reinforced concrete, and majority of them are under serious distress. They are under distress, and you can see some locations have cracks, falling. As you can see here, they're all, and spalled concrete in RCC is a kind of a limit state, because when you design something, you always put a limit state. This is the limit I can allow my building to go to. And many of the codes world over say that when the corrosion has reached 10%, 20%, that can be the limit. All right. And even very, very important structure, they say that initiation of corrosion, when something, I mean, corrosion has not manifested itself on the surface. In some of the structure, people even say that is end of life. But yes, that may be the limit state for very, very important structures like nuclear power plants. But in buildings also, generally, mostly the limit state is 10%, 20% corrosion. And spalling is nowhere then. Spalling is well after that. So we have gone past that particular limit state in most of the most of the elements in classroom complex, as you can see. And same was true in RB, reinforced brick elements in classroom complex. They're all arches, walls. Of course, mostly arches have problem. And summary is here. This is summary of classroom complex. Flat arches, semicircular arches, RCC slabs, reinforced masonry walls. Cracking, delamination, as you can see. Cracking in flat arches, 100% members had cracks ranging from 1 to 5 mm. 100% all flat arches are cracked. Semicircular arches, 80% of them are cracked. RCC slabs, 50% of the slab in ground floor is cracked, and 30% in the first floor, 70% in the second floor. 70% of the roof slab is cracked right now. And similarly, RCC walls, as you can see, 40% are right now have serious cracks. And then again, the dampness is also an issue which finally leads to these kinds of problems. Then we did, to complete these investigations, again in medical parlance, one is clinical examination. I described that. Inspection is clinical examination. Then you have to do some radiological or pathological tests also. So, so on the structures also, the same way, we did test, and many of these tests are same which we do on this, our bodies also. X-rays, CT scans, they are done on structures also. So we did the investigations. So this particular test, which I said, which is a pulse velocity test, it enables you to know the integrity or condition of this concrete element. It tells you whether there are micro cracks, cavity inside the concrete or not. And this is summary. Summary, I'll tell you for different dormitories here. Generally, our current code say that this value should be more than 3.75 kilometer per second, this pulse velocity value. And older codes, they used to say it should be more than 3. So if I apply that, then you can see all slabs, staircases, as you can see, how many of them are below this? All, more than 70-80% are showing the value less than 3. So this tells that all the elements in the dormitory, RC elements, they have some cracks, micro cracks, some problem, obviously triggered by the reinforcement corrosion, and then that is why there are problems. And also the initial grade of concrete which was used in all the buildings, at that time that was a grade. I am not saying that why it was used. At that time, as per the knowledge prevalent that time, M20 was a grade people used to use at that time. They use M15 grade, and I'll tell you that nowadays M15 grade is not allowed. In RCC, we should have M20 or more, depending upon your requirement, right? So here M15 grade was used. So then we did, because in our clinical examination, we saw that there are corrosion related issues. So obviously, to support that, we need to do the tests also, all right? So these are the tests which we performed to understand the cause of the corrosion and also to know the extent of the corrosion. So these tests are corrosion analyzer tests are there, which will tell you the rate of corrosion, half cell potential, resistivity of the concrete, electrical resistivity we all know. Lower the resistivity, it tells you that the environment is acidic, corrosion is must be going on. So this test enables that. 170 tests were performed on dormitories. And then to understand the cause of the problem. Corrosion is generally caused by carbonation or chlorides. Chlorides generally are dominating in seashore areas, but in mainland or inland, portions, generally in the cities, carbonation induces or starts the corrosion. So carbonation was suspected, and that turns out to be the true. Also, we performed 84 tests, and we did this test, and also we found the another thing was required to be found was what is the cover thickness. Cover means over the reinforcement in the concrete, what is the cover thickness? Because cover protects the reinforcement from getting corroded, from other kinds of environmental exposure. Unfortunately, the cover in these structures, RCC elements, was not uh, as desired, as required. As you can see for different dormitories here, member types in the slabs, we performed it. So half cell potential values towards, this is millivolts. So it should be less negative or more positive than minus 200 millivolts. Code say minus 350, even those values are also shown. Code means some guidelines. There is no Indian code. But our understanding, or based on our research and also research of other, researchers, it is now well understood that if it is more than minus 200 millivolts, then corrosion is active. As you can see, these say that corrosion is active in, you can say more than 30-40% of the elements corrosion. And this shows the data when you perform the test at that time corrosion is active. Sometimes if you do the test in hot summer, summer, that time corrosion cells might be shut at that time. So those will be added to this. All right. So corrosion is active, and the resistivity shows that all the values of kilo ohm centimeter less than that 12 is always said that corrosion is active at that time. As you can see, many of these elements show the corrosion is active, and this shows the corrosion rate. It is microampere per centimeter, so corrosion current density to be very precise. So corrosion current density of more than 1 is considered to be very high rate. Moderately high rate of corrosion going on. As you can see, it was found to be more than 1 in significantly number of RC elements. And then carbonation, which I said, carbonation means the cover concrete gets carbonated because of the environmental carbon dioxide. Alright, it enters into concrete, it causes carbonation, and then carbonation reduces the pH values. The environment becomes acidic, and electrochemical cell forms, corrosion starts. All those very quickly, the background of that. So then we try to find out how much carbonation has happened. If it has happened to the reinforcement level, it means corrosion has started. And just see the situation. All the members investigated, they have carbonated. So not only to the reinforcement level, some of the members we saw that the entire depth has carbonated, entire section has carbonated. So, and the cover, generally in the slabs, 20 mm is the minimum value or 25 in the beam. So cover depth less than 20. In majority of the elements, the cover thickness was found to be less than 20, which previous research or previous consultants who have done investigation, they have also said this, that cover thickness is less than required. And then we also found for RCC element the service life. The service life was determined for different reliability levels. And then, as I said, generally for such low cover, at 10% corrosion, we expect the cracking to happen. That may be the limit state. Or maybe generally people say, or we have also done that, if the cover, everything is fine, if corrosion has reached 20%, then it starts affecting the structural performance, structural properties, and that could be the end of life. We can say that as a limit state. We found the service life of both the cases, depending on what is the rate of, because obviously, whenever you find service life, you have to, for which exposure condition, for which demand you are doing. So demand is the environmental exposure, which is carbonation induced corrosion here. So for that, we determined that, and it ranged for 20%, it ranged from 31 to 54 years. So 50 years are already over. And then for 10%, it is in this range, because it will come slightly early, 10%. So with this current rate of carbonization, carbonation, or the way things are moving, and it will be, if you do the same study after 10 years, that time it will show you 30 years against 54 years, because carbonation levels, corrosion, the environment demand will also change with passage of time. So as you can see here, for reinforced masonry also, we did tests, but they were all invasive here, because all the investigation tests which are now available, they are mostly for reinforced concrete. For RB, there is no test which can tell you what exactly is the carbonation. Of course, it was visible everywhere, but the tests which I showed you in the previous slide, they are not applicable to RB. So what we did here was, we did invasive investigation. We drilled or broken some of the locations, and then we found out what is the condition of the reinforcement in the RB elements. And you can see it ranged from 10% to almost 100%. So in RB elements also, because of porous nature of the bricks, it is reported in the previous investigations also, and we saw also that the bricks were not of, at that time, again I say, they have used done everything to the best of their knowledge at that time, and knowledge also improves with passage of time. Maybe whatever we are doing right now, 30 years down the line, people will say whatever we have done is also not right. So that is bound to happen. So, so as you can see, many of the elements, we found that the corrosion degree was found. What is the residual diameter? Original, and what is the residual? And we subtraction divided by original into 100 gives us the degree of corrosion. So yeah, as you can see, it was 100% in many of the cases, 10% in some of the cases. And then we did some chemical tests also to find out what is the cause. Again, the mortar in the masonry has also carbonated, and that has also led to the corrosion, and even chlorides were also more than the acceptable limit. Generally chlorides actually, they are not the chlorides coming from sea, generally they are found in seashore areas, but nowadays if you use underground water or some kind of thing somewhere, through splashes, chlorides can also enter. In fact, they were also found in many locations. So when both club together, carbonation and chlorides, then the things progress at a very, very fast rate. Then we did, now in unenforced masonry, corrosion is not a problem. Then we found what is its actual structural performance, structural properties. So that is done by doing in situ structural tests. We call them double flat jack tests. In situ tests are shear strength tests are also determined, but these are some of the results of flat jack tests, which enable us or help us in determining the compressive strength, Poisson's ratio, modulus loss. These are all structural properties. We did those tests, and we determined the strength, and these strengths were used finally in the structural analysis. Alright, but then as we go by their absolute value, they are not very high. They are below par. And we did many tests on faculty block also, although it was not in the current scope. Previously, as I said, we did. There are also similar situation. We did this test before grouting. Consultant proposed the grouting, before grouting and after grouting. And there was hardly any increase in the strength of the masonry. And too much of grout was going into this because of the porous nature of the masonry. Over a period of time, the mortar has leached out. And as you can see here, these are some of the laboratory tests to determine the cement sand ratio, and cement sand ratio was in the mortar was 1:5, which is again not. These are tomography tests, computed CT tests, which are generally done by doctors and us also. So on brick masonry, we did that to determine what is the condition of the bricks and mortar. We determined the cavities. As you can see, these are all cavities in the mortar, and this. So in 10 cubic meter of the brick investigated, brick means masonry investigated, around 10% of the cavities were there, 0.925. It means the mortar has leached out. Of course, one thing is that bricks may not be of the desired requirement, as Mr. Patel also mentioned. But then again, mortar has also leached out at many locations. So in fact, masonry has also become weak. So now my colleague Professor Yogendra Singh will tell you about the seismic safety, structural adequacy of the buildings as a whole.
Thank you, Professor Sharma. Good morning, and I will the structural investigation, that is the safety of the structure as a whole, and it will be interesting here to give you a little background about the history of earthquake engineering, because it's very interesting that has a parallel with the history of IIMA. So the first earthquake safety code also came in 1962. So the discussion about earthquake safety of structures started in India something around 1959. 1962, the code came, and the construction that was one of the concerns in the design. We do not got access to any document which can tell us that whether earthquake was considered in analysis or not. But the use of very reinforced brick masonry itself suggests that earthquake was a concern, because otherwise, if we are not uh, concerned about earthquake, then unreinforced brick masonry is fair enough. But when we are talking about earthquake, then unreinforced masonry is generally not considered to be adequate. And when the code for masonry structures, earthquake safety of masonry structures came in 1967, then the very idea which Professor Khan has given, which I learned just now, today only, from Mr. Patel, that he has suggested for these vertical and horizontal RCC elements. So those elements are there in 1967 code, and still we are practicing those. And it is suggested there that the thickness of those elements should be minimum 3 inches. So if we are providing a vertical reinforcement, then there should be a 3-inch by 3-inch vertical element. If we are providing a horizontal reinforcement, what we call bands. So a band has to have minimum 3-inch thickness, so that adequate cover to the reinforcement is provided. Now we understand that even if we provide concrete, still it is not corrosion proof. Corrosion will occur in even in concrete. Inside concrete also the corrosion occurs. But the life is more if we are putting the reinforcement directly into the masonry, and when we are putting reinforcement covered with concrete, the life is going to be more in the second. So the concern about earthquake was there, and we have investigated that in the current form, or in the even in the original form when these structures were constructed, how safe those are as per the current earthquake code. So we have to understand knowledge about earthquake is also evolving. So the code which was there in 1962 and the code which we have today, the level of earthquake forces are different. Now we are designing our structures to much higher earthquake forces as we were designing in 1962, because the knowledge of earthquake in different parts of the country is improving. And the code is currently, the earthquake resistant design code is in revision. Currently it is in wide circulation, and it is considered that the forces will be further revised upward. We have for the current existing code, that is IS 1893 2016. So first step was to get the dimensions and properties of different components. So for that, all the literature which was available to us, the architectural and structural drawings for different dormitories, we studied the floor plans to get an idea of configuration of different walls, and we prepared a summary of all story-wise wall configurations in different buildings, and documents, or in context of some elements, the documents were not adequate. We were not getting enough information for modeling simulation of those elements. So that we completed through site visit. So when our team was visiting at the site, we measured all those elements for which the information was not available in the drawings. And we considered all 18 dormitories except one dormitory which was already prepared, dormitory 15, and we selected out of those dormitory 1 as the typical representative dormitory which we use for analysis. And the basis of selecting dormitory 1 was that that was the uh, building which was based on our visual inspection, which was expect resistance against earthquake, which was having maximum what we call wall density, so structural wall density, and its configuration was such that this was the strongest building. So we thought that first we will analyze building, which is the strongest, and then we will go. If this building itself is not safe, then there is no point in investigating the other building. So we selected that. Then a structural assessment was performed using finite element analysis uh, in a commercial software which is commonly used in the industry currently, ETABS. And we used homogenized continuum modeling. These are some technical terms I'm using, so please excuse me if you have not heard about these or you are not familiar with these. Still, we can work with. And we use thin shell elements. This is a type of finite element to model RCC slabs as well as brick masonry. And the support at the foundation was used as fixed. That means the effect of soil below was not considered on the flexibility of the structure. And the thickness of the masonry wall and slab were considered as per the drawings. So at few places we have measured that also, but we considered it whatever was drawing. So we assume that the construction has been done as per drawing. Then on the ground floor of the building, you might have seen that there are some buttresses, the inclined masonry walls. So those were also considered in our model, and all the openings, including those semicircular staircase, those were also modeled in our structural model. Then rectangular openings, wherever those are provided, the circular openings, oculus openings, semicircular openings were also modeled, and sunken slab near the toilet areas, those were also considered explicitly in our model. In other words, that whatever geometry is there, we try to model that faithfully. We try to consider all the openings which are present. And then at some places, architectural gap is provided, a slit, vertical slit uh, like element is there, which is separating the wall. So that was also modeled in our finite element model. And here we can see that some of the elevations we have shown, and the purpose of showing those elevations is that we understand that what material is available to resist the loads, the horizontal and the vertical loads. Horizontal load is coming because of earthquake, and the vertical load is coming because of the gravity. And when we are analyzing any building, we have to consider all the forces which are expected. So there is a thumb rule for earthquake safety that if we are having an unreinforced masonry building, then the total opening in a single story building should not be more than 50% of the length of the wall. So that is the thumb rule. So if we are providing too many openings in masonry wall, then the masonry wall becomes weak, and it may not be safe for earthquake. So we can do detailed calculations like finite element calculation we are doing, but the thumb rule is that in a single story building, the opening should not be more than half of the length, and in case of a 3-story building, the opening should not be more than 1/3 of the length of the wall. So only that much openings are allowed. But here we can see that from these elevations I am showing that a lot of openings are there, and incidentally these walls are unreinforced. So these are not having reinforcement except some element near the opening. Then we also tried to, this was one of the steps to do a simulation of these buildings to get the strength or the quality of material which these walls are made of. So slabs, as my colleague explained, we consider M15 based on our study of the literature, what drawings were available, and also based on our tests. And then the properties of the masonry we considered based on our own in situ testing. So um, we estimated through in situ testing modulus of elasticity, compressive strength, Poisson's ratio, and density. So those were also taken as present in the site. Then we considered the self weight, that is the source of gravity load, the vertical load. So that was estimated based on the drawings, the actual dimensions of different elements. The live load, the load which will be coming due to uses of the building, that was taken as per IS 875, that is the IS standard for live load. Then self weight and live load from the staircase was distributed to the nearby walls. I mean, these are some of the assumptions, some of the simplifications which we have made in our design, in our calculation of analysis. Then superimposed load for finishing on floor as well as roof, that was taken 1.5 kilonewton per meter square. Wind load was also calculated as per IS 875, and as we have in case of low rise buildings, it is the earthquake load which is governing. Wind load is not governing. Both are having horizontal effect on the building. The forces are in horizontal direction. So we calculated wind load, but that came out to be less than the earthquake force. And the seismic load uh, has been applied using response spectrum method of IS 1893, and Ahmedabad is in zone 3. And for unreinforced masonry building, the response reduction factor R is 1.5. And considering it as an important building, all the educational institutes, those are put in the category of important buildings. So importance factor of 1.5 was used in calculating the earthquake force. Then different load cases, the different loads, the gravity load and earthquake load are to be combined. And earthquake can come in any of the three directions, means both the horizontal directions as well as vertical direction. So we have to combine the earthquake in different directions, and the code suggests a 130 combination rule. So 100% when we are considering earthquake in one direction, in the other direction the earthquake peak earthquake load will not occur. We expect that 30% will come in the other direction. So that 130 rule we have used for this combination, and different load combinations we use for analysis. We calculated the stresses which we are obtaining from application of these loads through this finite element analysis, and we compared it with the permissible stress. So permissible stresses we have obtained from the test which we conducted, which came out to be 0.37 megapascal in compression. So the maximum strength in masonry we get is in compression when it is subjected to a compressive load. Then tension can also develop due to the horizontal force coming because of earthquake, and the tensile strength which we estimated for 1:5 cement and mortar, so that is 0.07 megapascal as per the masonry code IS 1905. And the permissible shear stress, that again we estimated as per IS 1905, and it came out to be 0.147 megapascal. And uh, while calculating the shear strength, we also need the compressive force acting, because it is a friction like behavior. So where there is a cohesion as well as whatever is the vertical load acting, that also contribute to the shear strength. So that was also taken based on the gravity load, because earthquake causes increase in the vertical stresses in some part of the structure, and it causes tension in the other part. So the average value remains what we are getting from due to gravity. So that we have considered. Then we perform a dynamic analysis. We studied the mode shapes. So mode shapes tell us about how the building is going to deform during earthquake. So some guidelines are given in the course that how a particular building should behave during earthquake. So we considered the mode shape, the fundamental or the first mode we call, which is having maximum contribution in seismic response of any structure. The period came out to be 0.34 seconds. We also compared this period with the empirical formula given in the code, and as per that empirical formula, this period is coming out to be 0.30 seconds. So analysis and code based empirical formula, both were giving periods very close. And code also says that we have to consider as many modes which are giving us at least 90% mass participation of the total mass of the building. So we obtained that roughly 72 modes were required to consider the mass participation in both the directions, both the horizontal directions, x and y. And these x and y are just any tentative directions. Usually we consider along the principal axis of the building. And in first three modes, we got the participation in both the directions, means that the modes were coupled. And for this type of this shape of the building, it is expected where we are having non-orthogonal component some of the walls are perpendicular to each other, whereas some of the walls are at an angle. So when we have this type of configuration, a torsional coupling is expected, and that was indicated by dynamic analysis. And finally, we have to check the stress. So for checking the stresses, we developed contours of stresses over the whole of the structure, all walls of the structure, and we have checked compressive stress, tensile stress, and shear stress, all the three possible stresses. And I will be showing those by this color code. So the stresses are shown by the color code, and what we see here, this is the compressive stress more than 0.37 megapascal. So that will be shown by this color, pink color. And tensile stress, which is exceeding our limit of 0.07, that is given by this blue color. So in compressive stress, wherever we will see this color, that will show that the stress has exceeded the permissible value. In case of shear, the stress can exceed in both positive as well as negative direction, and here this pink color as well as the blue color, wherever these are occurring, it is showing that the stresses have exceeded. So what we see here, this is the compressive stress over the structure, and wherever you see this pink color, that is in excess to the permissible stress. So we can see over the almost whole of the wall, only where we see this green or yellow or red color, that's the portion where the permissible stresses are within the limit. Rest everywhere, the stresses are more than uh, the permissible value. So we can see that most of the portions of the walls are having stresses in excess to what are permitted, and these stresses have been obtained as per the current code, as per the level of earthquake force specified in the current code. Similarly, tensile stress, as I explained, that blue color will show in case of tension, which are the portions of the walls which are having stresses in excess to the permissible stress. So we can see tensile stress are also exceeding. So during earthquake, this much portion will be subjected to tensile stresses, and those stresses will be more than the permissible stress. Similarly, in shear both blue and pink, because it is reversible type of stress, earthquake can act in any of the two directions. So when the earthquake is occurring, some portion will go in shear, which will be positive, another portion will be in the negative shear. But effect of both positive and negative shear will be same, and we can see that here also most of the portions are the stresses are exceeding the permissible stresses. So what we see is that the buildings are not safe. Even if we restore those buildings, those are not going to be safe for the current practice of earthquake resistant design. So to conclude, first my colleague presented about the in situ condition uh, or the health of the structure, and what we found is that in situ investigation which we have conducted on RCC, masonry in dormitory, and that indicates that there is loss in structural soundness and integrity of both materials. The masonry as well as RCC has been affected by aging, and the integrity in both the materials has been lost, that has been compromised. Then based on the site observations, in situ and laboratory testing and numerical analysis for relevant structural loads as per the current code, it can be concluded that buildings are highly vulnerable for earthquakes expected in this zone, zone 3 of Ahmedabad. So for this zone, these are highly vulnerable. And theoretically, we can retrofit or strengthen and even improve. We can make any building safe for current loads also, but the actual ground reality in these buildings is such that this exercise is going to be technically very challenging, especially removing the corroded reinforcement which is already there in the walls, removing it and replacing it with new reinforcement. That is going to be very challenging. It will require almost reconstruction of all the walls, and there will be many practical issues. and it is going to be very expensive. It may be more expensive than the new construction of the same area. So that's what we feel, and we are open for now whatever question.
Why we said this? Reason of saying why it is technically challenging or inadvisable, impractical, expensive, as Professor Singh has explained, that if we go one by one, we have seen that reinforced concrete elements like slabs, staircases, they have gone. They are gone because corroded. Some places, the corrosion is in the initiation phase. Maybe next 4 or 5 years, they will also meet the same fate as we have seen in the peripheral members. And the remaining members in the corridors, circulation area, washrooms, there the problems are serious. The members have already lived their life. So the solution for such thin elements, which call RCC slabs, is not to repair, because repair for thin elements is possible if the repair is only localized. Here we need to reconstruct them, because repair will be far more costlier than their reconstruction. So all slabs or RCC element need to be reconstructed. Coming to next, reinforced brick masonry elements. RB elements are still more challenging because their repair is not well understood. Nobody is able to tell, because that is the reason why in the previous restoration works also corrosion of bars in the RB has not been touched. They have tried to do some kind of a grouting, but that has not worked because cracks have again reoccurred in library and Dom 15, many of the locations. So only again possibility is to reconstruct RB elements also. Means then again all flat arches, circular arches, openings, they have to be reconstructed. Third thing is unreinforced masonry, where there is some possibility of restoration, which you can do grouting, or a grouting can be done. But then again, grouting, we have seen in the faculty block that while doing grouting, sometimes the pressures went beyond the limit, and then it has further caused delamination or cracking because of grouting. Even if we do all these things, still we'll get the same structure which was built at that time, which is will have inherent structural deficiencies, which Professor Singh has explained. So if we do, on one hand, we are saying that if we do restoration, which is not possible, very costly, challenging, impractical, still if we do some way, we will still get the same adequacy of the structure which we were having in the 60s or 70s, which is it will have inherent deficiency, structure deficiency. It will be unsafe with respect to earthquake loads, and we have to live with the risk. So with these words, we close. We have just presented before you the reality. What is the condition right now? The rest it is up to IIM Ahmedabad to decide.
Thank you very much. I think you can wait for a minute. If some people have some clarity, questions to be asked, maybe you can answer before we can. Yeah, please. One by one, huh? Please.
M15 is a 1:2, 1:4.
1 to 4, yes.
1:4. And now we say we are using M20. That is 1:1.5:3. So I don't see that M15 was lesser strength wise, because even now M15 has better strength than M20.
Yeah, I didn't get your question. Means
What I mean
which,
to say,
which
you said at that time
M15 was used
Loose.
1:2:4,
1:2
and M20 at that time used to be 1.5:3 ratio.
Yes.
M20, I just said that nowadays codes allow to concrete grade to be more than M20. We are not allowed to use M15 in structural applications right now. So that is what I had said during my presentation.
So what I mean to say, that was not inferior, even today's concept.
Okay, so I think there is some other confusion. He will tell. If you are saying that 1:2:4 is better than M20, no. It was good. I mean, M15 at that time is fine. I'm not saying why it was used. We are just saying that now M15, but things are that even that concrete has also deteriorated extensively. But I just simply said that nowadays M15 is not allowed. It should be minimum M20 now. No.
M20 better than, and when we say 1:1.5, so 1:3, 1.5 is
It is more rich.
and when you take cement. So M15 is leaner. M15 is having less strength. M15 is more porous than M20, and that's the reason the current code says that we should not use any concrete which is lower than M20 grade.
Fine.
Yeah, please.
Hello. Hi,
Yeah,
I'm architect Bharti Sinha Sahai. I'm a RIBA chartered architect, the only one from any of the IITs. I'm very privileged to hear your presentation, Professor Sharma and Professor Singh.
Thank you.
Just little surprised that no attention was drawn to the stakeholders with regard to the foundation and the load-bearing capacity of the foundation. Just a few questions with regard to the structural safety. And also to clear a couple of misconceptions. I've been living on the campus for about 19 years now, so I am a stakeholder on the campus. How deep are the foundations and what are the structural safety that you've come across? And because a lot of the stakeholders are convinced that the same foundations would be able to be used, which is not possible, as you would know, to retain the character and the design of the buildings. So could a little bit of knowledge
Yes,
be shared?
I'll tell you. Foundations, they are unreinforced masonry foundations. All right. Our previous consultant has already got the inspection pit dug, and then cross section was given. So foundations are fine, and there is no global settlement, because if foundation is a problem, there would have been global settlement. And then why generally in the foundations we do not see deterioration or problem? Because foundations are beneath the ground, and they do not have any reinforcement here in this case. So in the anything which is concealed below the ground, we don't have excess of oxygen, carbon dioxide. So and then also there is no reinforcement. Even in reinforced concrete, also in the foundations, we generally do not see any problem unless there is some design issue or something has happened in the soil. Then settlements are there. So foundation was not a problem.
Sure, sir. Thank you for that. So, what you're saying is that the character and the design would be an absolute replication, as is the current policy, global policy for renovation with regard to heritage structures.
Sorry, say it again.
The character and design, which at the moment I don't believe an architect has been included in this presentation, but would that be retained for the future to retain the character?
I think that I am Ahmedabad has to answer that.
That would be a requirement with regard to many of the stakeholders that are here. So, if that
Our job was to tell you, I mean, present before you the reality, right? Rest it is up to all of you.
Please don't speak behalf of everybody.
no,
Please
no, I'm
explain.
speaking
No,
on
no,
behalf of
please.
myself.
Please don't speak behalf of anybody. Speak on behalf of you, because other people also could have. You want to hear everybody.
Sure, sir.
If
Sure.
you generalize, then it doesn't mean that other people may have a different view or not. So I want to hear everybody's personal view rather than just somebody saying I'm representing everybody. It's not possible.
No, no, sir. I'm not representing everybody.
That's
I'm.
only I'm trying to
Huh.
highlight that.
Yeah.
Please say what you generalize. You can say your views, and we are very happy to hear your views. We definitely like to understand that thoroughly before we all collectively decide something.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. It's an excellent presentation. We understand that there's a problem with the structure and needs to be corrected.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
So, 2001 event occurred more than 300 kilometers from Ahmedabad. So, generally in earthquake, when we are doing hazard assessment, we consider a radius of 300 kilometers. So, any event which is occurring at 300 kilometers, because earthquake intensity depends on the magnitude, how large, and that earthquake was really very large. No doubt about that. That Bhuj earthquake was really very large. But it also depends on the distance. So, as we go away from the epicenter, the intensity goes on decreasing. So, actually, nothing should have happened in Ahmedabad during that earthquake. But in Ahmedabad, there were some examples, negative examples, and within the campus also, we did not suffer. I mean, this IIMA campus did not suffer extensive damage, but some damage was there. And that itself tells us that it is vulnerable. The structures are vulnerable because at 300 kilometers, nothing should have happened if things were okay.
So thank you very much. So it's a very technical presentation, and it would have been really good to have other technical people here, architects, like, who could have
So I think
talked in your language. But I have learned something since I've been quite engaged with this issues for the last 2 years, and I try and say what I understood from the experts, but I'm not an expert. So one thing was that apparently the most recent codes are not applicable to old buildings as far as legals are concerned, because it would mean that almost all older buildings have to be demolished because they don't meet the earthquake code. So this is just something I've heard. It would be good to hear your points on that. Second is that apparently no, it's very hard to make an earthquake proof building, and idea is to ensure that the building stands long enough for the people to leave the building and save their lives. So the idea is not to save the building but to save lives. So in terms of that assessment, what is your view uh, on the foundation? Really good to hear that.
Let us go one by one. Can we answer this earthquake
okay,
part
fine.
first?
Okay.
Okay. So one thing is regarding the legal framework for earthquake safety. So currently our earthquake codes are not mandated in the country. So these are only guidelines. So onus is on the owner. How safe a structure is acceptable to the owner. Owner has to decide. But all the educational buildings, as per these guidelines, have been put in importance factor of 1.5. So these are considered to be important buildings because of two reasons. Large number of people, assembly of large people is always there, and the future generation. So we can't take risk in these buildings. That is very clear from these guidelines. So what level of safety we will accept, there is no guideline. A minimum is given by the code, and that is also in the form of recommendation. It is still not mandatory until unless it is adopted by the local building bylaws. So whatever local building bylaws are there, but usual practice is that whatever is the current earthquake code, that is considered by the local authorities as the datum which we should use. That is the first thing. Second thing is, what should we do? I mean, it's still a debatable issue that what we should do for old buildings. Should we apply the same rule to the old buildings, which we are doing for the new buildings? So there is still no policy on that. Again, the onus is on the owner, what we are going to accept. In this particular case, we have not only the threat to life during earthquake, even under the given conditions. You see, corrosion is because of the reinforcement. Reinforcement oxide, when it corrodes, it forms oxide. Oxide is larger in volume, roughly 10 times the volume of the steel. It expands. And as a result, the cover falls. And large chunks of cover may fall. The masonry wall is splitting. So those masonry chunks may fall. So there is threat to life even without earthquake. And when earthquake will occur, those cracks which are hidden, those will be triggered, those will be manifested in the form of falling. So there is going to be life hazard. So currently the code is talking about only the safety of life, not about the safety of a structure. That is true, but both are related. If the structure is not able to maintain its integrity, even if a structure is not collapsing, but large chunks of concrete and masonry are falling, there is threat to life.
Apparently, again, I'm not an expert, but the building should be vacated within a certain time. They have
No, in
some.
case of earthquake, we don't get any time to vacate.
Okay.
Earthquake time is 30 seconds to 2
30
minutes.
seconds.
So within 30 seconds,
You have to be.
30 seconds we can
the
hardly
thing.
run out.
Yeah.
I mean, from this, if earthquake comes just now, and let's say we are sitting in this, we will not be able to get out during the duration because of the passage. And so in case of earthquake, this does not work. Perhaps what you are talking about is early warning. So,
No. I mean, look, again, this is what I've heard, so I'm just passing it on.
Okay.
The other thing was I had, because I was interested in this topic, looked at a detailed presentation on the Bhuj earthquake, where apparently 100 buildings had collapsed in Ahmedabad, and all were new. So, I mean, this assumption that, of course, we are rigorously looking at the old buildings and we should look at them. but this assumption that all new buildings are going to be safer is a question mark. Based
Very
on
big
that,
question mark.
based on that presentation that I saw, and also an expert had mentioned that the foundation of IIM buildings, old buildings, are all throughout instead of pillars. And apparently, the weight gets unevenly balanced when it's pillars in an earthquake. So the pillar-based foundations are a little more vulnerable than wall-based foundation. This is again, I'm not an expert, but it was good to hear that the foundation is still strong, and maybe perhaps either the IMA could decide on the conservation or on rebuilding based
Foundation is sound,
on
not
the
strong.
same
Sound.
foundation. That would be really
Foundation is sound.
sound.
I said sound, not strong. Strong means if something is, if you carry out analysis and you see if it is deficient structurally, then it is not strong. Sound means it is health-wise sound. There is no corrosion, there is no deterioration, there is no settlement. I said that one.
Sound. So that's just one point about new building.
Yeah. Should I
And,
respond
the
to that?
foundation.
In India, I mean, this is a big issue that why our new buildings, not only earthquake we have observed, even in corrosion, within 5 years, the buildings which are coming up in Noida, we are also involved in some of those. Within 5 years, those are deteriorating to an state much worse than this. So that is happening. Now, where is the issue? Is the issue with code or our understanding, or issue is with the implementation? So implementation is a big issue in India. So codes are not being implemented in new building. So if we will construct a new building without implementing the code, then that will also corrode or fall apart or may fail in a future earthquake, maybe in 5 years, not even 50, 60 years, which we are talking now. So when, first of all, we have not given any advice regarding construction of new, but this debate, new versus old. That's why I'm responding here that when we are assuming that a new construction will be done, it will be done as per code, as per standard. And if it is done as per standards, then we do not expect what the expert has observed during Bhuj earthquake. Because these buildings which were constructed in Ahmedabad and which collapsed, those, the basic codes were not implemented.
So, yeah, so that was just a point for the new buildings. And it was interesting that you didn't actually cover the D15 and library in your assessments because
We did that earlier.
I mean to say, in the comparative, you see, we know the buildings are in a bad shape, and the whole plan for restoration was made, repaired, etc., was based on their bad situation. And I think before Binda, Somaya, and all started their work, this assessment was done. Maybe the situation is worse now. Maybe you've done a more intensive assessment. But I suppose the key question in front of us is that between the pre-restoration and post-restoration, what is the improvement that we've got? Is it good enough or not? And what are the possible
I'll answer
improvements that we could make in the restoration process so that the outcome could be even better and we don't have to.
The time when we were taken on board, E15 and library, they were already restored. So we did carry out inspection and testing on these two buildings also, and then we found that many of the places where the repair was done, cracks were resurfaced. And then corrosion of reinforcement in RB was not addressed. Was not addressed. So still going on. Vikram Sarabhai library, which Mr. Patel had shown, some of the piers, they had serious cracks after restoration, and they were doing grouting at the time we started doing work. So that repair structurally didn't work. Actually, I have no issue, but structurally those things didn't work because corrosion of reinforcement in RB was not addressed. In the RCC also, the repair was done, but then again we saw some problem in RCC. So we did that. And again if you do, when restoration has been done, still whatever has been shown today in analysis, that is again applicable to those buildings also to some extent. Although, yes.
According to their advice, I've shown you in the picture that in 1-2 years we have to put support to maintain the structure. And the restoration architect put that there is no solution, put stop support. And then they are asking us to put this, inject some
That is called grouting.
grouting things done, which I just told you, we've done grouting, etc. In spite of that, the cracks are appearing. After grouting, the cracks are appearing. So, question is, I am also not a technical person like you. So, I am also vulnerable, but I only understand I have spent money. 27 crore rupees were spent on restoring the Vikram Sarabhai library. No problem, correct? And we all decided in the good faith that it will help us and make the building livable at least for 30 years, something like that. And in 2 years we have problems, and then this is every year we have to keep on doing this, and this also involves some cost. And question is, those two things only took 5 years. So we were like completely in dilemma what to do, and that's why we need to find a solution which is practical, which can be done in town time bound manner, and we are able to make this building available for use, maybe for at least next 30 years or so, something like that. I think that's what our thinking is, and of course I'm happy to hear you and maybe enlighten myself more. If you feel no, it can be done, then we can discuss that.
One more
Please
point.
further. Yeah.
After half an hour you sit with me, I'll give the full details, because I deliberately didn't do that, because right now our detailed investigations were done on these buildings, because as I said, our scope was except 15, because 15 as a periodic assessment post restoration, we did that 2 years before this. We have data for that also. If you're interested, I can show you.
Fine, we can present.
We can do that.
You just give us some time, we can present. That data is with us. But one more thing, one more point here I would like to bring to your notice regarding this surface treatment. Because the cause of these surface manifestations is corrosion of rebar. If that is not addressed and we treat from the surface, then we have hidden the cause. It will not be visible from the surface, but a large chunk any day which will separate from the main structural element may fall, and it will have very grave consequences. So until unless we are addressing corrosion and we are doing surface treatment, it is not only successful, it is dangerous also. It should not be done.
Sorry, can you take the mic?
DOM 15 was a pilot, and I mean, I felt that the procurement was quite, because it was a small project, 2.5 crores or something, and there were 5-6 vendors that we had got for those 2.5 crores. So the people we had were very small fellows actually, and I'm not sure that we got the best that we could have as far as it was just a pilot. So the by obviously the value was small, but if we had a credible, reputed agency for the civil works and for that, is there been a lessons learned on how we could improve the outcomes from DOM 15 is a question that comes to my mind, and not just procurement.
Yes.
There may have been other issues that may have gone wrong, which the whole idea of a pilot is to see how we can.
In that pilot, what was done? I'll tell you. Architectural restoration were done. I mean, some space changes, services were introduced, all those things were done. That is fine. And on brick masonry, on the surface, patches, efflorescence, all those things were done nicely, no issue. But coming to structural thing now, structural restoration was done only at the places where distresses were visible at that time. All right. So they did repair of RC elements at some places. They did repair of masonry element at some places. All right. Wherever the problems were serious at that time, they replaced, which I just said. Final solution is replacement only. Many of the flat arches in library, they were replaced. They were constructed newly. All right. I was just saying that gradually that will happen. So after 2 years, 3 years after that, when we went there, we started the work, we saw that all other elements have also started showing the same symptoms now. All other means many of other elements. The same thing is required to be done now there also. So this will be a long-lasting process. That took 5 years, and maybe next 20 years you keep on repairing. That is fine. I hope I could answer that.
Yeah.
So I think we can allow somebody else to
Yeah.
speak and
Good
then
afternoon.
back to you. Yeah.
Good afternoon. For 90 minutes, we have been discussing on the past of the infrastructure. I think the last slide of the experts very clearly prove that we should now get over that past. We have not discussed single one point agenda on what is the future of the IIMA infrastructure, which is the real reason why we are meeting. And the community here is not of experts or who are structural engineers or architects or planners. Here, the stakeholders are the students, the professors, the alumni. What is going to be the future of the IIMA infrastructure? We all understand and know very clearly that there are a lot of problems in the existing infrastructure. So should we now not focus on what should be the
Sure, I
future?
think we'll allow people to ask questions if they want some clarification. So if clarification question is there, please do ask. No, I do agree with you, but I think still people would like to clarify it, and it's good to get clarification and clarity on the current status. Then we can move. Please.
Hi. Can I just make a comment? My name is Ravi, PGP 83. Your last slide of conclusion said that any restoration work would be, the three adjectives you used were technically challenging, and impractical and prohibitively expensive. As a stakeholder and a non-technical stakeholder, I don't think those are enough to say that nothing can be done. Yes, restoring the Taj Mahal is technically challenging and practically and impractical and prohibitive, but no one says that let's replace it. So we shouldn't jump to replace. And also, as ma'am here very correctly said, because the last restoration didn't go well, doesn't mean that we replace things. So because the value here is not just the building, the value is emotions of all people like us. Values is heritage. Values is so it's much more than practicality.
Yeah, I think we can finish the questions related to the presentation which was made, and then we can come to the future. That would be better. Anybody else have any clarification?
Here is a, so suppose this building is not rebuilt, just maintained. What alternative uses can it be put to safety? So I understand safety is a major concern because of all the deterioration that is happening. Now that you have a good idea about the building, so what kind of, I'm not saying what specifically that IIMA is doing, what other kinds of alternative work is building?
Now at this stage?
I mean, as a consultant, suppose you are consulting someone else and you come across these kind of things, and you know some kind of restoration can be done, or some kind of repairs can be done, but you relaxed on that, then what kind of other alternative uses this building can be do, which will not entail major safety?
Actually, that's more of a functional requirement. I mean, what type of requirement we have. So anything where public safety is not important, where we are not having a large number of people, because there is risk to life, there is a threat to life. So in whatever uses we can avoid the threat to life, those can be done.
My name is Ashwani Gupta. I think this is
any question regarding their presentation only. Then later on we can talk about
just
the
a little. Yeah. So it's related to that only. I think this is the third open house we are doing on this subject. This is the third I am attending. There may have been others. So last time when D15 was done, we had a meeting after that in the KLMDC. My own viewpoint is that, apart from all the technical stuff which we've covered very well, I think even from an aesthetic point of view, as a stakeholder, I was not very happy. And, I had a very heated argument with the architect that time. The other is, people are saying that, we have learned from that and maybe we can do better. Is there actually any real learning that we can take from D15 and say that we can do better? Or is D15, because the team that was appointed there done Bombay Library and a lot of other projects. So it was a good team. It's not that, we had just picked up somebody. They would have obviously, it's a public institution, they would have gone through a vetting process. And so is there actually some learning that we took from D15, and then is there actually a scope for improvement in the process, or are we just, because we want to cling on to something which is emotionally very valuable to us? And are we doing that, or is there actual any learning that we can take from B15 and improve the process? My guess is no, but I mean, you're the expert.
Learning is that if we do not address the cause, then probably we are not doing the right restoration, because addressing effect will not, last long. That is what I.
Hello, I'm Bharti speaking again. Can you hear me? Hello.
If you have a new point, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I am speaking as an architect, so please do listen. I will try
Are
and
you
help you.
alumni or a faculty?
I am a stakeholder of the campus. Sir, you mentioned implementation. That is a very serious issue on the campus, and I'd like to help you, sir, Shri Patel. L1 is normally the tender that is approved on the campus, and because of that, there is a lot of, I would put it in very layman terms here to be polite, nexus. So what happens is that the implementation of, for example, the root cause of the rising damp you have in a lot of the buildings is because of poor DPC implementation. This was not addressed for a variety of the buildings. What happened was because the state of office here works tremendously hard. They help us at every opportunity. However, they are limited by the knowledge base of the the staff that they have. I do know that Mr. Vadir and Mr. Pranay Srivastav here have been working exceptionally hard to keep this very poor infrastructure going. However, if they are restricted by persons who do not have the adequate knowledge, for example, you would have seen during your inspection that a lot of the brick walls were painted, which led to efflorescence of the due to the reaction of the acid water and the alkali paintwork, which caused further deterioration of the brickwork. How does the board and how do you, sir, try and change the L1 policy so that we strictly get the best people who are actually actively, passionately, wanting to change the campus for better?
So I think one thing is clear. I think there is not answer, but I can tell you. L1 is a law which any government institute has to follow. That we cannot compromise. But that's technically there is a technical bid and there is a commercial. In technical bid, you can have such technical specification by which you can select people who are competent to do the job. But in that 10 competent people, L1 will get the order. It is, I would definitely like to get the best of the world, but then they will charge me more, and the law does not permit that. And I cannot take, a board cannot take decision which is against the law, which you will understand. But I think there is practical way to handle it, and I think we have been always trying to do this while things are being done currently. In 1960s, when this 70s this was done, these issues were not there. I also would like to tell you that for restoration work, there is no large agency in India. So I have talked to several restoration architects personally, and all they say is that we have, because it's a very skillful job. It's not a simple job like building a new building. It's a skillful job. There are only very limited people available, and only those are the people who can do it. So that's why all restoration projects takes a long time. The long time is because you cannot put 25 meshes at a time, because there only has to be a skilled person to do that, and that's why you need to. That's why you have smaller agencies doing this, and as such in India, most of the restorations are done in a small way. Flora Fountain in Mumbai, which is the fountain we all see, it was restored after 5 years. Such a small thing, because it is so skillful thing that unless you have the right talent in the person, you cannot do it. And then the architects only depend on you. The people who were engaged also was recommended by the architect, not L1 or anything. Recommended by the architect, and only those people were only given the job. That's what I am aware of. Just trying to give you clarification. I am not arguing. Please.
Yeah. I'd just like to. Hello.
Can you move to the next phase of talking about future?
Hello. Can I?
Just a minute. Let him finish the last one, and then we'll go to the future. Last point.
Yeah, I'd just like to draw a parallel between human body. We all go through tests and all that. We go to a lab in Bangalore where the technician does a whole lot of tests. The body tests like you've done, diagnostic and safety. And
so I think we'll talk to the future later.
No, I'm not.
I'm
not in the future at all. I'm just saying that at the end of the testing, the lab technician gives a report, and that report has to be examined by a doctor. Would you agree that your report, unless it is examined by equivalent or doctor, an architect, this carries no validity?
Who is doctor?
Architect.
Are we not doctor?
No, architect.
You are going into a very difficult debate.
I think very important point.
Let's not go into that.
As far as
structural safety is concerned,
are we not correct. I'm saying it's a lab technician.
I have an architect sitting here.
Correct. So we need more architects. We need more. The entire thing has to be put in front of an architect. Not
architect is not allowed to design, is not licensed to design structural design.
Okay.
This has to be interpreted by a doctor.
I think one thing is clear. The doctor gives you prescription for a treatment. This could be surgery, this could be medicine, this could be anything else. Correct?
Correct.
Right? That's what happens.
So what?
Architects can talk about architectural part. Structural is a specialty of a structural engineer.
Agreed.
That's what I understand.
Agreed. All I'm saying is
I end there. Sorry, I don't argue further. I end there, and we can move the lady back because we cannot argue. No? Argue will not end. Please go.
Sorry, hi, Sharda Prasad, PGP 93. And I actually had a similar question, or rather, I see this as being a member of the family who's been given a very severe diagnosis, which, there's an ailment that's been going on for years and years and decades. And today we are seeing some reports that have come in where it obviously is not a very good sign. And the question is, facing us as a family, as a loved one that is going through this, do we put it through more torture? What is the right thing to be done? Is there an answer in continuing this further, or is it just prolonging a misery? And do we look at the thing, bite the bullet, and say, okay, fine, maybe there is more sense in bringing back something in the same look, feel, but stick to that which gives us that emotional attachment. It's just a sick person in an ICU, and we need to make the call. And you are some of the doctors on that panel. So in your opinion, I mean, we can get multiple opinions from multiple people, but at some point in time, it has to stop. So you as doctors who've done some studies, your call today, if you had to say, and I think it comes to me for that, what would you say should be done?
Okay, I will give the answer in the same parlance. So when somebody is put on ventilator, who has to take the decision to remove the ventilator? Not the doctor.
Mr.
Okay,
Patel.
thank you. Thank you. I
Mr.
think we
Patel,
can end here and then we can only talk about the future.
Mr. Patel, if I may, sir, here, Chavi.
Yeah, please.
So I'm just in the spirit of now moving on to the future, since Sharda also mentioned this, and I'm also representing here the donor community, which alumni have contributed a lot of funds towards infrastructure also. One of the questions we've been asked all the time is that even if reconstruction has to happen, what would be the aesthetic of the buildings which come up? If this can also be discussed, I think it would really help clarify the position of the board and the institute.
Thank you. So I think, first of all, let us thank the faculty of IIMA. They did a lot of effort and help us to understand the problem. We have understood the problem. Now it is for us to decide what to do. So I think that's why I wanted to say that. So I said this is a good thing. So I think one thing is very clear. We want a safe, workable building. We all agree to that. Correct? The second point is there are two parts of it. One is the faculty block and one is the dorm. If you go to the newer dorms have much better facility. It has attached bathroom, etc. These dorms, of course, as you have lived in, you know that it doesn't have attached bathroom. It has a common bathroom, etc. So internally, the inside of the dorm does not have the modern facility which today's students may expect. Some of you may differ that if I was able to do it, but you know your children will not agree. That's the reality, we all agree. But still, so there's nothing to, uh, so, so I think that newer students would expect modern amenity inside the building, which also we have to consider while we deciding something. The other point which I'm trying to, the other part is the main building, which is the faculty block and the European Plaza. I said, this is a great architecture monument we have. If there was a practical way to restore it, we would have restored it, and we actually did a serious effort, spent crores of rupees to restore. But the fact is, after restoration, the results are not as we expected. Every consultant we have met, not one, Indian outsider, and have meeting, or building committee had several meetings, have said this can be restored, but you have to keep on maintaining, and nobody is willing to give you guarantee. My point is simple. If I spend money to restore the building, at least I should have some life, 5 year, 10 year, 15 year, 20 year, something. And then one, you can calculate, you are better than me in the maths to see that whether it's the right investment to be made. At the same time, the the, the buildings which are there are monumental. They are, our emotion is actually more attached with the look and feel of the building, isn't it? And that's what I'm saying. Can there be a solution? So I'm just going to put an idea in front of you, not that the idea is to be accepted. My idea is we should decide to restore, rebuild this whole campus. But the look and feel, the heart of the architecture inside should be modern, so the modern amenities can be used by students, faculty, everybody. The same area of remaining together, etc., remains. So without compromising on the heart of the architecture, whether it's restoration, rebuilding, whatever is to be done. We might appoint some architect to do that, but that is the only solution I find. And also it has to be completed in a period. We all can decide it can be done in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year. We can all discuss that also. And see, my point would be, the ideal would be in a shorter feasible time, whatever time we decide, we can create this building, because every restoration architect also has told me you cannot do 100% restoration, you have to restore and rebuild. So my point is that that will only be known when you break and when you start doing changing. So idea would be do that in the most efficient way in terms of time and cost is the solution. But at the same time, end of it, we should have same brick filling. We can use much better quality brick now. They are available. I don't know why today if you go to Haryana or UP, you find much better quality brick. You can even now get even better quality brick made using modern techniques. So all that we can use it while making sure. But at the same time, when the building is ready, it is rebuilt, but still it is not built like not the original we had. If I have to use very crudely and very stupidly, replica. If I have to use the same very crudely, and that architects will hate me to say this, but I agree with. But I think I want to be a practical person, which can actually allow my institute to grow forward, our institute to grow. So that's what my suggestion is. But I think we would like to hear your views, different views. I'm happy to listen.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Briefly introduce myself to the audience. I'm the only one in Ahmedabad who has witnessed the groundbreaking ceremony of this campus. That was in September 1964. So, therefore, I have the longest association with this institution. And in one of the earlier meetings, Pankaj Bhai had suggested that he can rebuild the whole thing and still give the same feel of the old campus. My request would be on this campus, to my opinion, three things are very, very valued by all those who have passed through this campus. One is something known as Harvard Steps. Another is Vikan Plaza. And the third one is the one we are sitting here. In whatever future planning and rebuilding, if these three things are kept as they have been, use the latest machinery and latest equipment and latest material and whatever. But if we can still see the same things, I would be very happy. And I'm sure many others would also like to see that. But yes, others can give their opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, there. Yeah, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Patel, for this for organizing this meeting. I'm sure it's going to be an inclusive process where all of us have come with open minds to look for a solution. Fundamentally, I think it is not a trade-off between infrastructure and heritage. I think we need to understand that construct first. Fundamentally, infrastructure should not crowd out the heritage part of what we have in the campus, because there is, beyond the physicality, there is a certain attachment that all of us have. And therefore, we would like to see what best efforts we can take to ensure that the heritage structure is preserved. Right? There were inferences from the IIT Roorkee faculty on the structural bit. But beyond that, we come to a point wherein we have to say, listen, given that the structure is, they've got deficiencies, number one, can we now try and get this back on track? What are the efforts we need to do, right? Therefore, we should look at those. I don't think it is we should try and ensure at an emotional level, and I'm not even getting into specifics here. The emotional level is, it should be the triumph of and, not the tyranny of or in this place. That it is not this or that, but can it be in good infrastructure and heritage? Can we combine these two? That would require a lot of very good minds that are available in your board, amongst alumni, all of us to sit together and hammer out a solution. I think that should be the way forward, fundamentally. If you're saying that, you listen, we will try and get a replica done, for example, we need to be clear about which are the pieces that are going to have this replica clearly. Are you saying, therefore, the design will not change? Okay. And therefore, will the same look and feel, will it be the same G+3 structure or whatever each one has? And we need to have these concrete reasons as to why we are doing this. I think it is not just about the business case alone. It is not just about ROI alone in this place. It is not just about, the practical aspect of it. There is also an emotional layer on top of it. And that is the reason why so many of us have come here today. Not to come and, have a dialogue with you. I'm very happy that this forum has been created. At the same time, please consider the fact that we need to preserve both these. It's not a trade-off that we make. The typical business context. That's it.
So I think one thing you said, what you said is what I'm saying. Question is, the bars have to be changed. Reinforced bars to change. How do I change without breaking the wall? There is no way. See, the whole point is that you were not part of it, but we have been consulting so many experts, India, abroad, so many people have come and made presentation to us. So many people have discussed. End of it, the solution which is practical and doable is, yes, we have to keep the architecture same. But at the same time, we will have to restore it. Now, restoring, rebuilding are the wordplay. Even half-heartedly, Vikram Sarabhi Library half was rebuilt, half was restored. And today, what is the situation? We are still in the same situation. I don't want, after spending time, money, everything, you are in the same position. And we say, okay, we should maintain it well. Very easy to say. I am not here forever. Neither all of us are not going to be here forever. There are going to be people coming and executing it. Do you expect that every time, top of the world, and nobody can define what is the best maintenance practice? It's when I ask architects, please define best maintenance practice. No, you have to define. Everything we have to define. Now we are all non-technical people. As far as we like the architecture, we love the heritage, we have all that we love. So we have no deferment on that. I also agree with you. As you said, I also say the same thing. Question is, how do I find a practical, realistic solution for the future of our institute? That's where I want your suggestion. Because otherwise there is no end to it. No, we can keep on debating. Please. Please take a mic. Let Amal bhai say it, then you come.
Thank you very much, and we really appreciate the efforts which are being made to see that the heritage is maintained. Only two questions, basic questions, and perhaps may not be liked by many of us here. Number one, that ours is an institute of management, and it is not our prime duty to maintain a certain heritage and to maintain certain property. The amount of time and energy and money, correct, that will be spent in the idea which is also being proposed, that we'll try to maintain the outer this thing, but inner we'll try to, even that will be very difficult. So one should try to keep it at a low priority. The priority of the institute is toward education and management. In fact, that and the logo has taken too much of time and energy. And we really appreciate one tries to do the best, and we are all with you in doing that. But please, please don't overextend.
Thank you. Please.
So I know we have a blessing and a curse, perhaps. Every architectural student in India studies IIMA's Louis Khan campus as part of their modernist component, along with Le Corbusier's Chandigarh. And I think we have a duty to that community. I would really suggest that IIT Roorkee presentation, add Dom 15 library, maybe even some new structures to give that community also these findings, share the reports with that. We can't leave them just hanging. There's a.
I will tell you. I'll tell you.
I would
Meenakshi,
suggest.
Meenakshi, architect. Not a single salt done. So that's a problem. Please understand this. This is the point. They want to talk something, but they don't want to be part of the. See, I want a solution. I don't want what I'm doing is wrong. I'm doing wrong. Okay, accept it. Then what is the solution? People who don't give me solution are actually a problem for me. So you please understand. I want solution. You all want solution, because we are all interested in growth of this institution, future of this institution. So I want a solution. So please come out with a solution, because I can call 10 more meetings. I don't mind. I am willing to spend 1 month at the campus with everybody to discuss this. But then what? Solution I want. And more I meet, I get confused. But one thing I'm telling you, I've met so many national, international architects personally to understand. In fact, last week we had 3 architects, me and Dr. Samir Mehta. Both of us spent 3 hours meeting with 3 different, and we briefed them. We gave them the report of all these reports to study and come and discuss it. Everybody is saying same thing. Restoration, do, but maintenance has to be done. We don't give you guarantee. How much time it will take? It is 10 years. So this is my practical problem, for which I don't have a solution. Please provide me a solution. That's only simply I'm saying, nothing more. Please.
Second in Ravi Mehta's auditorium is again founder. I would suggest that as the next step, we engage with architects and people knowledgeable about it. Because the Roorkee report, one last line says, may be possible, may not be possible, but we need people to come and tell us the solution.
So I think
we can have a meeting with architects.
So I'm also differing with your point. Restoration is possible. How sustainable it is? What will it take to make that happen? But I understand 10 years to restore, number one. Number two, after that, there is no guarantee.
We are very creative architects. Bangalore. I know it's very.
No. See, I think there are few architects in India, correct? We've been working with many of them, not this particular person, but many. But every architect is a very intelligent, very creative, very good, capable person, and would always have a view. I'm not denying that, and I'm also not differing with their view. My question is, I want a sustainable solution. If as an architect you want to come and provide me sustainable, you are most welcome. I'm willing to meet anytime. But I don't want a solution by which say restore karenge. This is the cost. Chalo cost we accept kar liya for a moment, right? And then it will be done in so much time. Also, yes, done very good. Then no guarantee. So you have been interacting with the architect community. You also had a seminar, right? So is there an architect which can come and tell me that yes, we will restore this and we will completely put it into operation in a given time period, whatever we all collectively decide, and will give us a guarantee that then that will be meeting the standards which is required for safety of this building. If there is something, I'm willing to meet them. That's all. No problem. Sorry? They also said the same thing. This can be restored, but we can't give you guarantee. You can't trust us. That's a problem, no? Please understand. Please understand. See, you were, first of all, I am very upset that you doubted about capability of an enlightened professors. Very sad. And I don't think we should. Sorry, let me finish. Let me finish. And sorry, we should not have done that. First of all, please be very clear. And I don't feel bad, but I'm saying they are respectable. They've been helping us. And I'm not saying that if there is somebody who's going to solve this problem, I'm willing to accept the solution.
Sir,
but meeting them doesn't solve the problem.
I am not doubting the
1 minute, sir. I'm trying to help you here.
1 minute, I'll give you time.
I never doubted the capability. We have done an
Pankaj
excellent
bhai,
job.
may I just jump in on this one?
Please.
I think the issue over here that, so first of all, I speak also as an alumni. I am PGP 89, like a lot of alumni PGPs over here, and I'm a faculty over here. So when I put both my hats together and I look at what is happening, I think for the institute, if we are genuinely concerned about the institute, the architecture has to take second place. Okay, there are some of us over here who are just focusing on the architecture and not on the institute. The architecture serves a purpose, that's all. And the purpose is education of current and future students of the institute. And if that purpose is not being served, then my opinion, for what it is worth, is that we need to move beyond the architecture. The best solution that is there for us just now, in my view, is one that is already on the table, which is that we recreate something which is as close as possible to the original. We will all know in our hearts that it is not the original, but at least we will have the satisfaction of knowing that the institute has done its best to recreate something as close to possible, keeping in view our sentiments on that particular topic, which is that we would like to see something that we are all affiliated with and attached to, and the institute is doing something about it.
Sir, if I may just
may I? Can I have? Sir, I just want to extend. I was extremely disturbed just now. It's nice that somebody compared to Taj Mahal. That's a Kabristan. That is what this place has become. And the second thing, somebody talked about constant, repairs and this and that. We are in a Vietnam war. People are bombing, and whenever the planes go, we stand up and start teaching. Something else happens, we lie down, then we get up and start teaching. Somebody talked about doctors and the blood report. There should be a report of our psychological conditions who have stayed there for 25 years. You are talking from outside. What about those who are living inside here for so many years? In fact, some of us might sue IIMA for the kind of living conditions we have been put into. And you come from outside and talk like this? Please don't smile.
Sir, if I may, just to
Let him say that. We'll get time. You'll get time. Don't worry. Please.
So there are a couple of points.
One is when it is about safety, it is about safety. Now you think from the point of view of as a parent, would you like your sons and daughters to stay in these unsafe buildings? Second thing, you are questioning the experts. They are from IIT Roorkee. They have done their work. And with all good intention, they are impartial. I mean, you can keep questioning. And now I'll link it to the second point. All of us have passed through this institute, right? We were taught one thing. Life is about making choices. In making, you don't know whether the choice is right or wrong, but you still have to make a choice in a limited time frame, whatever you feel based on. That's what uh, Professor Shastri used to tell us. There are different variables. You need to combine and come out with what you feel as a leader is the best option. I think if we have a competent team and they've done their work, and there's someone who's kind of collating that and taking the decision, I think all of us need to support them. That's the only thing we need to do.
Please.
Thank you so much. I have to give credit to the IIT Roorkee team. They've done a fantastic job. There is no, doubt that the infrastructure does need repair. Very well done, sirs, both Dr. Sharma and Dr. Singh. With regard to, you mentioned that would we be doing the renovation over a short period of 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, you specifically said that. It would be a professional advice that to take it slow, because when you demolish an entire structure, as both the learned professors know, that there will be a spring back in the foundation. So let's test that. They said that what knowledge is available today may be questioned in 30 years. But why we are here today is because we are questioning the knowledge that exists today. We are questioning that. That is why all of us have come in such large numbers to be able to address the situation. Also with regard to the understanding of architecture. Architecture in the old campus in the late 1960s was, the work that was done by Mr. Khan was so excellent. That is why people, as the young lady pointed out, we come to study this institute. When you enter the buildings, it doesn't matter about the voids or the self-supporting arches. As soon as you enter, the temperature goes down 2 to 3 degrees. The voids, which are next to the classrooms, act as wind tunnels. The structure overall encompasses community living. Now, I understand that, as learned faculty have pointed out, we do face problems living on the campus, but it's not that they cannot be addressed. My house in particular, we got it renovated in around about 2007-8. Till date, it has had one repair last year because it was over 16 years since I repaired it last time. There was no damp, as Mr. Pranay Srivastava would understand. It can be addressed if done well, supervised well. What happens in the new buildings that are being constructed on the campus is that it's a copy-paste effort, which is as low as an architect can go with regard to wind direction, with regard to solar facing, with regard to community living. There is none of that in the new buildings. And that is why the community has come together, because we do not want to get rid of the old heritage architecture, which actually understood what architecture meant with regard to giving quality of life.
No, I also agree with you. No, I already said we have to maintain the old architecture. That's what I'm saying. Question is, how do you make that happen?
Absolutely,
Restoration, rebuilding, that's the only solution.
Absolutely,
no?
sir. But
that's where I want your view. Yeah. I'm also saying the same thing, what you're saying, that I want to maintain, this is the great architecture. We are not denying that at all for a moment, and I want to maintain that. How do I make it happen in an efficient way? That's the only question I have.
So
Absolutely, sir.
One problematic issue was the redevelopment plan for DOM 1 to 14. And the tender that was issued in 2020, which is how we actually came to know that I structures, is deeply worrisome based on what I think Ms. Bharti just said. So, Rashmi and I...
So I think that was misunderstood, and I'm sorry for not communicating with you well. That time we wanted architectural competition to suggest us things which can be done. So it was, the tender was only for the architect competition. So maybe 10 different architects would have made an effort. As a result, things would have come in front of us, and then we would have found a right solution. It was never demolition and rebuilding or completely different. Nothing was finalized. Only thing is that we will create an architecture competition, find out the best one which is ultimately comes out of those, and do that is what we decided. So even what I'm saying, if I have to do it, I will also create an architecture competition. We'll share them with all the information, and I said we want to maintain the Lucan thing and we want to make this happen in this period, suggest us a solution, and thus architect, which will come forward and say, yes, we will get it done, I will give them the work.
So my suggestion, and I think the suggestion of quite a few alumni I am working with quite closely, the suggestion is that you don't distinguish between external facing structures like classroom, faculty wings, library, dorms 17, 16, 17, 18, and the inner core. And that the inner core, I know that Louis Kahn Plaza is iconic and events, it's a photogenic backdrop for a lot of our important events, but alumni really benefited from the dorm architecture. It's not just architecture. So all of us benefited because we stayed in a design that...
So I don't want to change the architecture. Dorm will remain the same architecture. Inside, I will provide modern facility to students, which is desirable.
So so the thing is that now we are going beyond replica. So there is restore, replicate, and redesign.
Please understand this. You saw the
I
dorm
want to understand.
No, the dorm design, if you see, inside there are dormitories and a common bathroom. If you go to the new dorms, everybody has their own attached bathroom. Today, that's a requirement generally you see for students. Correct? So that is the first point. That is the difference between the two. Second is that they have been provided with a better storage capacity, a cleaner bathroom, etc., etc. So I think internally, without compromising, if you are able to provide, I don't know, architect will tell me whether it's possible or not. I cannot say. If that is possible, I would like to basically consider that as well. Because ultimately, if I can provide my future student inside something better, what's wrong in that?
So we did an online survey with 103 students of 2021, PGP 1 and 2 combined. And 80% of them wanted to preserve the architectural design as it is.
Correct.
And not go for any, and not go for...
No student is willing to stay in dorm now.
No, hang on.
No, sorry, it's wrong, completely wrong. Whatever who done is wrong. I give you information. No student is willing to stay there.
Because
after they see that is so much better, they don't want to stay here. We understand that, no? If you have a better hotel room available, would you stay in a lower grade hotel room? No. That same thing applies here.
So nobody wanted to move out of dorm 15. So if you had a renovated, comfortable dorm, in fact, they were kicked out of there for the faculty and they were so upset. So what we asked them was not, do you want to stay in the old campus or new campus?
We wanted to restore faculty block. I have to put somebody there, no?
Please hear me out.
Nobody was kicked out. They have to be sent there.
No.
Nobody was kicked out. They have to be sent there because I need to create space.
Excuse me.
These are management issue. And please, external, though you are alumni, you do not have right to get into such a nitty-gritty of managing the institute by the director. We should not do it. I don't get into that.
Please.
Nobody else should get into it. You get into the thing which is heart of it, which is look at heritage architecture. How do we create something which take care of our architectural, wonderful architecture we have. At the same time, we have infrastructure which is long-term.
So could I don't know if I could complete.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm sorry.
Could I just say that the number of...
The professor is answering. Please listen to him.
I think...
Okay. I'll just finish. I'll just say that to expand the number of buildings and to expand the number of rooms and to attach toilets to all the rooms in dorm 1 to 14 is going to be very difficult to capture the spirit of Louis Kahn. And I would advise...
Please understand, I don't know. Architect will tell me it cannot be done. I will not do it.
So
I'm sorry.
Why do we decide that?
Nostalgia is always rose-tinted. I mean, if you had to stay there for a month, you would not. Believe me, I have seen my old hostel rooms. Wherever I have been, what I think about the hostel rooms and what they are completely different. Hear me out. The point is that if you are staying in a room where chunks of concrete are falling, and just, yes, I have stayed in houses where chunks of concrete have fallen, right? So that's the status of the dorms, that's the status of the houses now. In offices, we have been asked to move to one part of the office because the other part of the office, chunks of concrete are falling. So therefore, it needs renovation right now. I mean, you may want to have, if you want to have conceptions of your old dorms, create 3D models. But for the people who are coming here, For the people who are coming here, they need to be staying in safe environments. They need to be staying in modern environments. Louis Kahn had designed something in 1960s. By the way, LKP was constructed after Louis Kahn's death. Louis Kahn did not construct it. It was named after Louis Kahn in 1974 after his death. Huh? So therefore, when we are talking about what Louis Kahn did the best that he could do in 1960s and 70s. There's no reason why in 2023 we have to stick to that.
Sir, sorry to interrupt, but sir.
Yeah, I'll go on after that.
So thank you very much, Pankaj Bhai. It was great to be here and listening to the presentation. I'm alumni 75, 77 batch, as well as been coming to the institute every year. And one of the things which comes out every time is the safety of the structures here, whether it is in the classrooms or in the hostel rooms. And prime thing which we have to look forward is the safety, which becomes most important. Second is we are in 2023. Instead of looking mostly at the past, let's start looking at the future and start thinking of a structure which becomes an example for the future. So my suggestion, Pankaj Bhai, we have been discussing this subject hell of a lot every time. Let's move forward, get going, and let's leave it to the experts to take the decision, get going forward.
Yeah, please.
Sir, so I am the latest entry in the IIMA family PGP1, not officially yet registered also. So it's my second day in the campus, and I would testify that the new campus dorm rooms are really good as compared to KLMDC dorms, because we have been allotted KLMDC and some have been allotted dorms in the new campus. So like we are feeling envious, like why we have been allotted KLMDC dorms and not the new campus dorms. First thing. Second, again, then on the another spectrum part, we would say like Louis Kahn Plaza has a different vibe which new campus doesn't have right now. And the whole debate going on right now is like the ship of Theseus thing. Like we are continuously changing the old ship's part and repairing it, restoring it. But in the end, we will have a replica. So is that replica the original ship or not is the question. And it's a philosophical question which no one will get answer to. It's about the time and the efforts which we are putting and how much time we are taking to change each and every part of the ship. Whether we are doing it in the 5 years or we are taking 30 years to change each and every part of that ship. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. So we heard the student. I just were trying to say that because I've heard many more students. Students want to go and live in that new one, which is beautiful. I would love to do that. You would like to do that. Same thing has happened. Please.
Yeah, Inder ji said he's the oldest person. I'm probably the person with the second longest association, 47 years, from 1977 onwards. On this old, what the students want. For the last at least 20 years, I have been a local guardian to at least 2 students every year. I'm going to be a local guardian for 3 students this year. During the COVID time, I think I approached the warden at least twice. You know, was kuch kar do, ye bacche ko purane campus se naye campus pe shift kar do. There was a girl who got a room in D6. And when I visited that room, I mean, I just said, "Beta, I'm sorry you have to live here." And it was in such a bad condition. And I think we have been extremely fortunate that there has not been an accident on campus due to a falling brick or something. So it's time to move on. Emotionally, I'm probably highest vested here, but I think it's time to move on. Just last thing, sir. We have been doing this for now 7, 8 years. This is the 3rd or 4th meeting. Let's move on. I mean, we are in an infinite loop. You need to break it, sir.
We are a management institute, and our job is not to create iconic structures. That's part of the job that we as a body will have to do for this campus. But also, we have created a brand and we need to preserve it. And the best way to do is to create something new.
Please. Yeah, Manoj.
Yeah, so, I've been seeing this since 2011. We faced the maintenance problem. In the 2014, we invited Stephen Gee and to have a visual look. And they said, experiment with one building first. And based on that, you take next course of action. So that's what we did. We did D15 and library. And by 2018, we came to know, because unless you open up during restoration, you don't come to know what is the actual state. So after doing that, in 2018, we had first conference like this. A lot of things were discussed, a lot of inputs were taken, and still we went ahead with the restoration of faculty block. Again, when you opened up, you've seen the presentation from IIT Roorkee, what we experienced. So every step we have been finding that it is not restorable. And finally, today we are, in 2020 when we came out with an RFP, the whole idea, as Pankaj Bhai said, was to have an architectural competition to give a suggestion of what best can be done. It could be replica, it could maybe exactly same, it could be totally new. So that was the idea. But somehow we got a lot of inputs like this, and I'm sorry to say, but we are wasting a lot of time. We have to move forward. We are 2014 we had started, we are already 2023. In 9 years, you have not been able to do anything with this. So in fact, we need to impose our faith and trust in building committee and the board. They have heard all of us. Now it is a time to move fast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Hello, I'm PGP 2003. I happen to, experience both the old campus. I lived on the old campus. I was part of the student committee, a small committee formed to give inputs on the new campus, which was being built at that point of time, into the design and the working, etc. And I also happened to experience the new campus. My wife came back, do PGPX in 2016. One core part between the old campus and the old campus, the student interaction was far better. New campus, lacks life. It doesn't have life. Students are there in their rooms, they come out, they play, but there are zero student interactions. In fact, I'm now in Ahmedabad. I come down to the campus quite often, take a walk, etc. The new campus lacks life, and I think that's the biggest architectural blunder in the new campus, I'll say. It is an education institute with classes, with rooms, everything there, faculty places, but students don't interact. Students go to their Cindy's, they interact there, and that's it. The old campus, I think we have been hearing a lot of voices on, it needs to be restored or same architecture. Maybe nostalgia is what demands the same architecture, but the institute is not built by architecture. Institute is built by the alumni, by the by the faculty, by their students which are there, the future students, and the entire alumni who are there out there. We define the institute, that's not the architecture. Separate out the design, the architecture, and the structure. The design and the, what you showed, that one small piece, that's a design. The architecture is the building, created, and structure is what has been put inside. Let's continue with the design and the architecture. The structure can be rebuilt always. That's my personal thought. But something can be done on the new campus to give it more life, should be done. Old campus, whenever rebuilt or innovated, the life should be maintained. Old campus had life, new campus doesn't have life.
So good point. I think you have made a good point. We will apply mind to that about the new campus and what can be done. We'll apply mind to that. Maybe we'll ask a few people to give us ideas and see if we can do something about it. So good point. Anything else you want to say? Please.
Yeah, the online, there's no participation from the online people? They're not asking questions or anything?
I've seen the questions. There are no questions. Okay. Really, there is hardly any question, I would say. A lot of people are agreeing to that, but the questions were there, but not significant questions.
Just curious.
Some other people have said that we are not able to hear some people clearly, etc.
Okay. I have, first is thanks a lot for your immense patience and being so nice and candid. It's wonderful.
I can stand here till evening to talk to you.
Really wonderful. And that was a brilliant presentation by the Roorkee team. They needn't have worried about being no experts because it was literally a class. We could understand everything that they said, and I appreciate the scientific temper of what they spoke about. There are two ways in which I have a personal emotional commitment to this. One is because I'm a serious restorer. I restore old furniture, and I can tell you without a shred of doubt, restoring is the most painful work in the world. It's impossible, virtually impossible. I restore old furniture. It's painful, it's difficult, it's dangerous. and it takes a lot of patience and time. The other thing is I probably know more about this campus than anybody else because I've written a book on the wildlife at IIMA, Nature at IIMA. It's a huge coffee table book, and I spent 2 years looking at every cranny of this place. I have just one comment to make. We inflict Bhavnath temple on everybody that we interview. Bhavnath temple, the case, where the old temple would be submerged by the dam. That's almost the trope, the standard group discussion topic. If we were to do the same thing, this is our real life Bhavnath temple. It's come back to us to bite us in the ass. If we were to look at it, and I seriously thought about what these gentlemen said, and I've changed my mind literally. If Louis Kahn were doing this today, he probably wouldn't do this because the materials would have changed. I mean, the structures have to be there. There's no way about it. There's nothing you can do to it except replace it. And we can look at restoration projects from around the world. They will have to be replaced. Now, the question is whether you want an exact replica or something else. That I leave to the larger committee, but the replacement has to happen in that sense. So but there are many, sorry.
Thank you, please continue.
There are many things we can do to preserve it, like Meenakshi rightly said about preserving the facade. Some of us have said about the interiors, which can change, and that's happened in many parts of the world. The codes we can change, the electricals we can change. But I have one point of contention here. If you look at the outside of this auditorium, it's already breaking apart right now. The entire parking lot and the foyer in front, they have not been leveled. Somebody has to physically keep pushing the water here and there. Our execution standard seems to be extremely poor. Even in the old building where conduits for water and they found wildlife habitat actually. Because they're so badly installed, there are nooks and crannies for the water pipes and the electrical conduits. If we seriously don't take care of that, even what we do newly will be just as
See,
bad.
what happens, I'm the chairman of the board now. I cannot decide what heritage I get. I got this heritage, I have to find a solution and move forward. Happens in life, no? You want to a parent, you may like them, not like them. They are very rich, you are affluent, you are not rich. All that happens. Similar thing is my situation. But I want now to move forward. I cannot stand there deciding nothing. Best of my friends told me, Pankaj bhai, why are you taking trouble? Don't do anything. Nobody is going to create an issue, which is not the right thing to do.
I understand.
I would vacate this place rather than not deciding anything.
True.
And I think that is what my heart tells me. But what I want is we all talk in one unified voice. My way is the way I'm not saying. But we should have one voice. This is what we will produce. What should be the next step? And the next step to me is that we will create an architect, we'll invite architecture to come and tell us, and we will define clearly that the Louis-Kahn architecture should not be compromised, the circulation should remain the same, and it should become a livable, sustainable building. And then we'll ask architecture to come and do a presentations and thing. And then we'll select the best one who can give us the most optimum solution.
And also a stark realization based on scientific evidence that perhaps the great man didn't intend this to last more than 30 years.
See, I didn't want you to tell.
No, it's not. That's what this
but
says.
See, listen. We also did not follow at that time what that great man told us. He told us to create these RCC columns 3 inch by 3 inch between the brick. He also said about putting a vertical canopy at every 4 feet or something.
Yes.
Which we didn't do it at that time.
It has happened.
Why we did not do it? I was very young and hardly could have understood at that time. But the point is that this is what I learned. I met people because I've done so much of work to understand that what is the real, why it is happening, what is that. I've understood the problem. I have to come out of this problem. And we all have to agree to find a solution which is the optimum solution, best solution for us.
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman and the group.
Hello. Please.
Everybody, thank you for this opportunity. And yes, we have an old campus with a lot of issues. We have a new campus. We have an opportunity to now touch the old campus and make it something we are going to be proud of. Now, I just worry that when we built the new campus, and I know it's the past, I'm going to the past, why didn't we bring in design elements of the old campus? Now,
you're asking a wrong person a question.
Okay, that's why I'm saying it's going into the past, but I'm saying now that's why perhaps many of us in the alumni have been a little dismayed. Say I have been dismayed because there's a coldness. I mean, I feel like I'm coming out of Fatehpur Sikri and going into downtown business district, you know, when I go to transit between the two campuses.
No, let's not get into that. Let's focus on this problem.
So let's have serious intent to further whatever legacy, heritage we have, whatever learnings we have, and beauty is an eye of the beholder. And there's a duty we have for preserving heritage. So we must keep that up.
I'm not differing. You give me a solution.
No,
No,
but we didn't
see
see
you
that
are giving
happen.
very theoretical. Please try to understand. You're talking theoretical. I'm giving
I'm not
practical
talking
solution.
theoretical,
You
sir.
give me a better practical
No,
solution. I'm willing to accept it.
I'm saying the new campus is the example of
But new campus
something not done. Something not done.
I have given you a solution which I thought may be possible, and I'm not saying that's a solution only. But if you have a better solution, please give me. No,
Yeah,
that's the way.
let us not cut paste the new campus.
110% we are now going to cut paste the new campus. So don't worry about that.
My only recommendation, suggestion, or plea, as you may take it, is replicate it as it is. Please replicate it. If you feel restoration won't work, which I feel emotions are very high because the campus has been in a bad state for a very long time. We are comparing a before picture with we are not looking at the after. Look at Dom 15 and then look at Dom 33. Ask students what they prefer. Don't look at a falling, collapsing Dom and say they prefer new campus. Obviously, they'll prefer new campus if you give them a badly maintained room and a badly maintained Dom.
Student is here, you can interact with them later on.
So all I'm saying is talk to students, ask them. They love the awe and the inspiration of the old campus. They love the vibe. That word was used over and over again. If given a choice between Dom 15 and Dom 33, 8% will take Dom 15. Obviously, they won't take a collapsing room in Dom 3, right? So please distinguish. And I would urge
But
replication.
I think you've given me a solution.
Replication.
Replicate without making any compromise. That's it.
With brick facade. Because
Yeah,
in your
100%. Oh, I told you, but we will use a better quality brick. So that the same thing doesn't repeat. Suppose they come out with a solution by putting a column which is hidden inside, we don't mind.
And they all said that because of common toilets, we meet in the 10-year reunion that happened in December. 80% of the students who came were from the old campus and only 20% from the new campus because connections are compromised in the new campus because they don't meet. So
I think he made a very
don't
important
assume,
point, and I think I've
don't
taken a serious
assume.
note of
So
that.
there's a pedagogical underlying philosophy for the shared spaces in the
Correct.
old dorms. So I
So
would
any education student, shared spaces are important. If not there, there's an issue.
and in the new campus, you gave shared spaces, but there were common rooms in other floors which no one used. So it's forced sharing when they have common toilets. That's what builds the dorms. Small sizes of dorms is what leads to better interaction and better cohesiveness.
I think when we do
If you multiply the number of rooms by 60%, 80%.
As far as the replication is concerned, I've taken your point, and I'm agreeable to you. As far as I alone cannot agree, I have to still take to the board and take their approval. But I will be your representative there, pleading for the case, so no issue. As far as the dorms are concerned, replication will be done. Inside, if it's to be changed, we will do the student consultation and do it.
So will
Whatever
you be,
we'll do as advised by our students. Because when this new campus was made, students were extensively consulted and they gave a lot of suggestions, were incorporated while making that. So we will consult students when we do that as far as entire interior is concerned. And suppose they are happy with the same thing, we are happy to keep
most
the same.
students, if you ask
It
them,
will cost us more to
those-
create more bathrooms.
those students who have not experienced the old campus will automatically choose attached toilets. It's only those students who have appreciated the life in the old campus, the vibe of it, that
Please, I understood. Let the student say no. Rather, I and you say, student will tell.
Sorry. You know, I'll say I have seen, again, sorry, I have seen both the lives. You know, I've stayed on this side of the campus, maybe few days, maybe 10, 15 days in the entire year. Attached toilets have their own huge benefits, right? The, small mingling area outside the rooms, you open the room and you arrive at the common area. You don't have to walk down to the common area. Sorry, nobody walks down to the common area. Nobody sits in the common area, watch TV. Cricket match happening in that common area. you know, a REM session happening in that common area, those 10 rooms and the way those 10 people bond, they don't bond in that square. You know, people don't come out of the rooms because they don't have to, they can't come out into the corridor. And,
Point noted.
you know,
Point
the
noted.
vibe, the interaction's
Point noted.
completely
We
missing.
can give a chance. I understood the point.
Hello,
Point very
hello.
well noted.
Hi, I just wanted to say, see, we're talking about interacting and yes, the architecture of the old allowed to do those sessions. But also what we find is that today's life has become isolated and individual. So this thing is not just in terms of having the spaces, but that's how people are in terms of using virtual now to interact, and COVID has made that, amplified that even more. I think the concern really comes from having seen the new campus. Most of us have not been very happy with the way new campus turned out. So I think the fear is that will the old become like the new? But I'm very reassured to hear that if we're going to stick to the brick, you know, keep as much of the current architecture, the layout, the plans, maybe even the common bathrooms, etc. If that is going to go be, you know, asks for the new design, I mean, I just want to now see what it is and move forward, because I think we're going around in circles.
I think I've got enough homework and enough thing to do. I will do the justice to whatever you're saying.
Hello. Hello. Sir.
You wanted to say something? I think we must listen to Professor.
Excuse me. Hi.
We must listen. 1 minute. We should listen to the Professor first. Yeah, please.
I just have to say I'm Ashok Chatterjee. I perhaps represent an idea which is where this whole magnificent drama began, in a sense. And I just want you to understand that as a design community, you represent something which is quite extraordinary. But when you are looking at this building and the buildings around, just try to understand perhaps what would be the brief that you would articulate for an architect. You're all talking about bringing architects in. What would be the brief that you would articulate for that architect? What would you expect that architect to do? Because in my understanding, Louis Kahn did not sit down and say, I am going to create an iconic building. It became iconic because of how it was used and what went on inside those buildings. What is amazing for me, as somebody from the design community, from the day that I entered this campus for the first time, way, way, way back, this campus lifts you. It gives that transformation that takes place when you come into this campus. It's very, very unique. Now, when you talk about replication, you can't replicate something that you love, which is going. So please don't make unreasonable expectations on the future. The future will have to be lived. It's a country which we cannot visit even in our dreams. Our children will visit it, right? So it's a very difficult and complicated situation. But personally, as someone who has been involved with NID and with the design community and with the building committee of this institute through these years, I have not in any of my experience in India seen any community which has invested so much genuine effort in trying to find design solutions. And the horrifying thing to me has been, during this difficult years of exploration, the amount of rubbish that has been thrown at IIM, despite these efforts, and you're just seeing part of it. I've sat on this committee for many years now through 4 directors. And the point that was made here, which is very, very important, there is a whole community, not just of architects, but of designers in this country who need to learn from this process that has gone on this campus. So the point that you made, that this learning should be available to another generation, is absolutely critical. This has never happened before in this country. I can tell you that as a former director of NID and as someone working in the design community. This level of intense commitment to quality and looking for solutions has just never happened before. And we will lose it if it is just seen as an architectural problem. It's a design problem. And what is important is to think about what were the values that Louis Kahn and the founding fathers of this institute had in mind at that time. Those values is what has to go into the future. Maybe in the same buildings, maybe not, but the values are the important thing. So I do hope that you will understand, the whole NID community will, the IIM community at large will understand what a colossal investment has taken place. And sometimes, Pankaj Bhai, you may feel it's a waste. 10 years have gone, we're still at the same place. No, 10 years have not been lost. This is a rich, rich learning. But that learning has to be documented, it has to be shared. And all that's been written in these last few years about this building and about this campus needs to be brought together so that the teams that will work can stand on the shoulders of this experience. Do not expect Xerox copies. That's not what design is about. Design is about creating solutions. You've heard the problems. What kind of solutions will depend on the intelligence, the vision, and the support which those people have. And it's not just architects. It's architects, it's landscapers, it's structural engineers, it's designers of all kinds, but most of all the people who live in them. And the way IIM has listened to people, director after director, committee after committee, board after board, I don't know of any other institution in the country which has invested this kind of thing in design management. So I think you have a lot to be proud of. There are huge issues, there are huge challenges, there are no silver bullets. Absolutely none. And one of the problems, I can say this as a person who has been in this area of design, none of us, no architect, no structural engineer, no manager is God. And we have to understand that the role of the architect is to serve. Serve whom? Serve a client. In this case, teachers and students. They have to move into the center of this debate and discussion and decide what is that future that they want. So it's not going to be easy, but I think the real issue now is, for the future, what next steps can we have? What would be the brief that this community would put together for those creative people who are to find solutions towards that future? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Hi. Good afternoon to all of you. Jai Shri Krishna too. This is Payal Agrawal, AGMP 05 batch. And we are in डालमिना कि we are going इसको change करना है कि नहीं, because we have so much love and concern for IIM कि इसीलिए इतना सारा time लग रहा है. But the changes are always important and strong decision, and IIM stands for that only. Gujarat University का जो पहले I've studied from KS also. So आज the scenario is much better than before. गुजरात यूनिवर्सिटी की कैंपस आज पहले से बहुत ज़्यादा बेटर है, बहुत सारी और उसमें ब्रांचेस और सब आ गया है. लाइक AU इज़ मच बेटर. तो न्यू आर्किटेक्ट्स एंड ओल्ड आर्किटेक्ट्स सब मिलके हम अच्छे डिसीजंस करके इसको कंक्लूड कर सकते हैं. डोंट टेक मच टाइम. थैंक यू.
As an alumnus, I would like to say just one thing after hearing all of us here. Safety, functionality, and modernity, these three factors. As an alumnus, I would say for myself that I have a lot of confidence in experts, and I'm sure the board would take the right decisions at the right time. But we are looking for something for the new India, which is going to be something that we'll all be proud of. I'm not politically affiliated anywhere, but I'm very happy that India has a new parliament house. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I just passed out of this campus last year. So I'm relatively on the newer side of things. But I do concur with what Sir just said over here, that the institute now has to really undergo a transformative change. Louis Kahn, when he had instilled and built this campus, the philosophy, I wholeheartedly agree. The openness, the need to meet, interact, what ma'am had said, that's true. We still do need it. Students interact, that's how we learn. When we interact with faculties, again, we learn. But now we have to also understand that at that time, the number of students were less. The students right now, the capacity is obviously going to be increasing more. Future India is going to be growing. We're going to need more people coming into this campus. And space constraints will obviously be here. So on that note, I would say that the philosophy that Louis Kahn had previously had with the old campus, I would love to keep it going. But we need to have further more visions towards what we need in this current phase of the infrastructure involved. So again, it's open to the entire community over here that keep the core tenets of whatever Louis Kahn might have had at the time and develop that and make it a better place to live and interact, I mean, faculty-wise and alum-wise and student-wise as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is with regard to the learned former director of NIT. He mentioned that what would be the brief that you would give to an architect? Sir, with all due respect, what we are doing here is creating that brief, but also at the same point, it's very simple. If an architect is approached and told that safety is the main priority, then we already have a structural report from IIT Roorkee as has been presented. What would be required is to have that community living, to have the essence of what an educational institute aspires for, to create a monastic place where the mind excels. So that is what IIM, the old campus, has excelled at providing. And that is not because Mr. Louis Kahn had an idea that he is going to just build a building. He wanted to create an iconic monastic building where the mind excels, and therefore he had the appropriate knowledge and consultations with a wide variety of persons to be able to achieve what has become a temple. I'm not going to say Taj Mahal because some persons had views again, but a temple of learning. And this is what, despite the learned former director and the board of committee member being part of 4 committees over successive, I'm not being, pointing fingers or anything, but despite that, the new campus was created with a complete lack of community living. And even today, many of the faculty who are in the Forum Towers do not appreciate something that was created and opened just last year.
So I think I have got enough feedback on NU even before this meeting. So I am aware of that. Let's focus on this problem because otherwise we will be wasting time.
Yes, sir. So what I'm just trying to say is the brief is very clear to any architect, even based on this meeting. Thank you.
Yes, understand. Hope I've given, yeah, please.
Which is what we also want to share. Because of, we have had so many learnings that the world is shifting towards hybrid teaching, learning. So there'll be, we must recognize that and build infrastructure also accordingly. Secondly, in the complex offerings of other learned universities, they have campuses in Dubai, Singapore, Australia. Maybe there's an answer for us that we need to also take an aggressive role and have a campus in Bombay, in Delhi, in Dubai. If we have to compete, if you have to get global students. So what I'm saying is it is going to have a repercussion. If we need to relook at our vision, that, and you must be doing that, that it has a repercussion on how much built infrastructure we need to have here. So we should not necessarily load the replication of the old campus with an agenda of adding rooms or adding etc. without doing our thinking, because maybe we may just build a white elephant. So let's actually think of how we want to expand IIMA to get more market share, to get more global recognition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I had a question regarding wanting a different outcome from campus. Meaning, if we want something, we all feel new campus doesn't give us connection, inspiration, etc. How will the same team of people, like, I'm sorry, I don't want to be personal, but for the last 7, 8 years, the building committee and the governing council have been directing the infrastructure that we've got over the last 5 to 8 years.
It's been done before that.
Okay, since 2014-15, right? No, the forum and all these buildings.
Buildings have come up later, but the designing and everything, selection of architecture, designing, everything happened much before.
Okay, my data, you will know better. Obviously, my data was
I can share
2014-15
with you information
onwards.
later on.
So all I'm asking is, what will you see the building committee, the governing council doesn't really have architects or infra experts at the moment. I want to know what will be different about the process, because I do hear even now a lot of preference to function over inspiration and connection. So can we?
I think, please understand me, actually,
Yeah.
I'm trying to hear everybody. Does not mean that I'm saying I'm going to do this way or that way. I've understood. We want to maintain the Lukanth heritage. The, the, the heart of this building is what it is. And we want to rebuild, reconstruct, restore these buildings. They would look the same in terms of bricks, etc. But the point I'm trying to say that that's what we are going to do it. Some people have given suggestion that while we're doing that, look at future, internally, can you provide better thing in the internal side or not? We will explore all that. I cannot decide that unless the architects will do it. So we would create architect competition. We'll invite architects to come and make presentation. And we will involve faculty and the students in the relevant building to see which is the best one we like and move forward. That's the way it is going to happen. Because there is no final, sorry? It is very difficult for me to select one. Point is that there are 5 alumni representatives on the board. I would strongly urge you that please come through them. They have the right to say whatever you want to say. There is no reason they should not do it. But yes, if you are willing to volunteer and help us, I'm happy to take your help. No issue.
So
absolutely not. Please give your details to me. Definitely I would like to, because see, we want to come out with the best solution. I'm not saying that my way or that's the only way it can happen. There is no way other than our collective way. I think that is what the spirit in which this meeting is called, and I think that is what we should all maintain.
So could you, I mean, we had a 25-year built infrastructure growth plan for IIMA that was approved in 2018 or something like that, which was prepared by the master architect, Bimal Patel. And that did not include redevelopment and expansion on DOM 1 to 14. No. So why do we need to impose growth objectives on the redevelopment of DOM 1 to 14?
Please understand. It was thought that DOM 1 to 14 will keep on working. 1 to 15 will work. So that current strength of students can be accommodated there. And we are expanding so we can double the intake. That was the plan in the 25-year plan. And with that number of students were to go up. That was the plan of 25 years which you are talking about. And there the new DOMs which are created would have created additional capacity. Now we created the additional capacity, but we lost this. So we are at the same position. Today actually we are short of space.
No, I'm just saying if the 25-year plan did not envisage growth in D1 to 14, why do we need to have a growth imperative for that redevelopment? Because that troubles me.
No, we are not talking about growth. We are talking about rebuilding that same thing.
Same thing with the same number of rooms, no expansion of buildings or rooms. Because the tender talked about expanding.
Forget that. Forget that. No, that is history. Now, see, please, first of all, remove that thinking in your mind that we are going to do something horrible. We don't want to do anything horrible. Second thing is, he is volunteered to come and talk to me. I'll call him. And I'll call you also. And we can discuss that 10 times, no problem. I'm available. Because, see, if I'm remaining, as long as I remain chairman of this, it is my duty to make sure that we collectively do and talk in one voice, whatever we do. Internal, this room, we have all reason to differ. Outside, anything coming in newspaper is pain to me. Because it is not hurting me, it is hurting the institute, which is closer to your heart and my heart.
So yeah,
and we will make sure that collectively we will talk in one voice, whatever we do.
Since 2020, we've been asking for a meeting, sir.
I was not.
And now we are getting it, sir.
But
So the
but
reason
please
people
understand,
go.
You have approached me for a meeting now.
No, sir.
No, you written to me, but I have no say. No, I was not the chairman of the board.
Yeah.
I was one of the board members.
That's right. So we've been asking for a meeting because we prefer this to going out. But when you don't get any traction, then you end up.
Now you got a traction.
I've got.
And I'm my promise, you can approach me. We can talk anytime
and
sit together and discuss.
Fine.
And we will differ. We'll argue. We'll fight. But outside we are coming out smiley, one voice, whatever we decide. If we keep this spirit, we will take this institute to the next height. And I think that is the spirit I expect from everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Do you agree?
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Shall we conclude now?
Yeah.
I think I'm also hungry. Hopefully.
Sir, I have a last suggestion, question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I represent from the last batch with Amit. And sorry to say that every senior's alumni want to live in their fantasy. Okay, they do not even ask for the survey to us. We haven't received any survey. The next new generation. I have stayed in new architecture, building 26. It has a community. It has a common space. It has a shared bathroom. So I'm enjoying. As a new generation, we have enjoyed our as a class. So new architecture has community. There's a wrong data actually. That's what I want to say.
Thank you.
And I'm an executive as well because it's a continued education. So I choose in the second year the air-conditioned room. So it's a need of a customer. It has to be satisfied.
Thank you. Thank you.